Frank Martin leading us in on a Wednesday morning. Hope your Wednesday morning's off to a good start. Thanks for being a part of the program. Tim Hill, Patrick Perrette, Jim Jensen with you. Bill Gunter, final of his 3 days off this week. We'll see if we can't fill in appropriately, fill those large shoes, metaphorically, of course. Carolina Panthers cut a former Gamecock yesterday in kind of dramatic fashion. Dramatic signings for the Lakers in what seems to be a nostalgic bit of roster management over there. And on the other side of things, Team USA, women's basketball, A'ja Wilson and company just handled Australia by 24 points to get you up to date to advance to the semifinals in the Olympics. So plenty going on, as has been during this Olympics, and has me in a good mood on a Wednesday morning. Patrick, what about you?
Yeah, I would say so. That game, unfortunately, started very late. I was hoping that it was going to be one of these 4 a.m. starts, but I think it started at 1:40 local time, so bit of a bummer. But yeah, advancing to the semifinals, is that what it is? Or that was the semifinal, now they're in the gold medal match?
Nope, now moving to the semifinals. Just like the baseball team I just heard in the update, which was we had, again, completely wrong, 6-team tournament. There was a knockout round, so we assumed if you lost in the knockout round, you wouldn't be able to make it back to the semis and the gold medal. But apparently you can in the baseball deal. But in basketball, no. The Team USA women, I think that's their 53rd straight win now in Olympic play. Now moving on to the semifinals in the Olympics there. A'ja Wilson and company, no problem with a 24-point win against Australia.
Yeah, and my favorite Olympic news of the day yesterday was, did you see the equestrian news?
No. Oh, no. What happened with the
equestrian? There's controversy. The horses are getting spooked. You didn't see any of this? Apparently, there's jumps on the equestrian. I don't know the first thing about equestrian, but I guess there's jumps because it looks like a little ledge or something for them to jump over, and it's decorated, but part of the decoration is a sumo statue. And apparently the horses are getting spooked and just freaking out when they jump over the ledge and see a sumo statue standing there. I don't know if they're throwing riders off the backs of the horses or what, or just completely screwing up, but apparently the riders are complaining about the sumo statue spooking the horses. If you just type in sumo statue on Twitter, there will be many articles about it. So fascinating storyline. And I was looking for equestrian on the app to see if there was any equestrian going right now, because it would be hilarious if they just refused to take the statue down and it's just a lingering controversy in the equestrian stages of the Olympics. And we have to put an asterisk on these gold medals because of the sumo statue.
So while the Big 12 and Pac-12 commissioners meet, while the Carolina Panthers cut JT Ebe about 90 minutes after he smashes a wide receiver and sends him to the hospital. After Carmelo Anthony signs with the LA Lakers, it's sumo statues in equestrian at the Olympics that really catches your attention.
Oh, absolutely. The JT Ebe stuff caught my attention for a second, but I cannot imagine that he was going to have made that team. Well, if he got cut for this.
On Pro Day. Nearly the exact same numbers as J.C. Horn.
Yeah.
Almost the exact same numbers, but a completely different college career. And
I mean, we thought he was notably not good.
Right. He struggled for sure. And that wasn't last year, right? That was the year before last year.
Right.
So as far as I know, didn't play last year. I'm sure tried to catch on, maybe had some practice squad time somewhere. But yesterday was about as dramatic a preseason cut, non-Hard Knocks TV that I've heard of. What about you, Patrick?
Well, it was a dramatic day overall in NFL training camps because Matt Stafford, did you see that he hurt his thumb?
I saw that.
Hitting his hand on a helmet. And you mentioned Hard Knocks. A lot of these things remind me of Hard Knocks because you'll see when there's one-on-one blocking drills or something like that with a quarterback back there, the defender's trying to beat their man, and if they even brush the quarterback or the quarterback hits him on the follow-through, they're getting ripped by the coaches. The coaches are absolutely killing them, yelling, "Don't touch the quarterback! you don't touch the quarterback in the NFL. And I know that defensive players talk about how difficult it is to not touch the quarterback and let up when you're trying to make the team and beat an offensive lineman. But there's just rules in NFL practice about what you can and can't do. And I don't know if somebody got cut for Matt Stafford or if that's an offensive line situation, but that was one thing. There was a massive brawl in the Giants camp that was apparently brutal, and Daniel Jones was stuck on the bottom of it because of a tough hit to Evan Ingram, and they basically just let the fight cover Daniel Jones, so there's just not a lot of protection of the quarterback going on there, and Joe Judge was making them do push-ups, which was not well received by a lot of former NFL players, saying that we're grown men, our coach doesn't make us do push-ups. So I don't know how that went over. And then the JT eBay thing, and I'm not going to pretend I know how easy or hard it is to let up in practice, in a padded practice, when you're supposed to be hitting, you're trying to make a name for yourself, and that's maybe if I had to describe JT eBay's game, I don't know if I would have called him a thumper. I don't know what I would have described him as, but he's trying to make a name for himself, but you can't send a guy to the hospital on your own team. I mean, that's just you've got to be smarter than that. He concussed him, apparently was really bad, and there was a fight after that because of how he hit him, and he was cut immediately. So the fact that they cut him immediately, I cannot imagine he was high up on the depth chart going into the training camp. But no matter what, that is just sad. The kid seems to be okay. Keith Kirkwood, I think.
Yep, Keith Kirkwood, who missed most of all last season with injuries as well, and went straight to the hospital there in Spartanburg. But the early prognosis is positive. I think the big takeaway here is just how Matt Rule went nuts after this thing. I mean, immediately kicked out JT eBay from practice and brought everybody together and talked about how you can't hurt teammates. You got to take care of your teammates and the whole deal. You know, Steve Spurrier was really the first coach where I had heard that, because I think Lou Holtz, from a Gamecock perspective, I'm talking about, Lou Holtz had much more of the old school mentality of you got to be hard nosed and you got to be physical. And he would have some tremendously physical practices. And it's tough to preach that and also out of the other side of your mouth say you got to take care of each other, right? But Steve Spurrier was known to practice just smarter, really, I think, than a lot of college football coaches, and use a lot more common sense. And I think that's what Matt Rule is trying to impart on his guys. And that's the tough part. Like you mentioned, Patrick, these guys are trying to make teams. JT eBay is trying to carve out a career. And you can't do that if you get the reputation for being a safety who can't hit, right? I mean, you got to be a guy who plays physically. That's how you make the NFL. So it's just an unfortunate situation. Clearly no intent. eBay put out a statement after all this went down, saying that he actually talked to Kirkwood, and fortunately things are going well, and he apologized and was just trying to knock the ball out, but admitted that it wasn't the right move, and was going to try to learn from it and the whole thing. But we'll have to try to catch on with another NFL organization, because kind of like you mentioned, and I mentioned it was mentioned in Joe Person's article with The Athletic, who used to cover the Gamecocks and now does it, now covers Carolina Panthers now for, I guess, a decade or so, or pretty dang close to it. But if that had been J.C. Horn who had delivered the hit, what would Matt Rule's reaction been, right? Obviously, the investment in J.C. Horn is much larger than the investment was for JT eBay. So kind of an opportunity for the second-year Panthers coach to make a statement. He did so, and unfortunately it results in the cutting of former Gamecock and JT eBay, who had he's the one that came from Rice, if I'm not mistaken. Does that sound right to you?
Right.
A year under Will Muschamp, I think it was, and the secondary, the struggles have been well noted, and he was part of those a couple of years ago. 803-404-6100. Would love to hear some of your opinions this morning. DC, LeVar, David, Trey, and Chris all up early with us on the video stream, Facebook and YouTube Live, also on Twitter, where you can catch us there. Up and rolling on the traditional FM and audio streams, the app, the website, however you're listening to us. We appreciate you joining us on the program. Also notable last night, the Atlanta Braves, now just 2.5 games back, I think, in the NL East of the Mets. They win 6-1 against the DC. Max Fried gets the win there. So a struggling season it has been for Atlanta in multiple ways, injuries and then legal issues with the guy who ended up leading the league, I think, in RBIs last year, and Marcelo Zuna, who hasn't been back with the team in months now. And yet being able to overcome a lot of that to be sitting right around 500 and not far behind in the NL East. Patrick, how do you see this thing shaking out, being a Washington Nationals fan that just saw basically his organization give away the team?
Yeah, I mean, the Nationals just traded everyone, and they're 6.5 games back. When you look at it like that, you would think, man, did they sell the farm too early? But no, the NL East is just awful. You got nobody wants to win that thing at this point. The Braves were just going win loss for like 15 games in a row, and the next worst division leader is 8 games above the Mets right now. It's the White Sox with 63 wins, and the Mets have 55. So it's like just a brutal division that I guess is going to go down to the wire, and anything can happen in the playoffs. So there's no reason that they couldn't just get hot, especially the Mets. If the Mets win that thing, they're going to feel like they can win any game with DeGrom, but just a brutal division. When you look out west and you look at the Giants, Dodgers, and Padres all over 60 wins, and then just the fledgling NL East with almost every team below 500, 3 of 5 teams below 500.
Well, and that includes what the Atlanta Braves are 1 game under 500. The Phillies are 1 game over, and the Mets 4 games over 500 right now. The Marlins are brutal, 15 games under 500, but 9.5 games back in the division. Just as an example. So Atlanta now 2.5 games back. The Phillies are a game and a half back of the New York Mets in the NL East. Something to keep an eye on as we hit August and head towards the home stretch in Major League Baseball for sure. That also means we're heading towards college football season, where the headline yesterday was that the Big 12 and Pac-12 commissioners meeting to explore options. My reaction was, what took them so long? Why did they wait until a week after the news of Oklahoma and Texas joining the SEC and the whole thing? Patrick, what do you think of? So the story is that Bob Bowlesby saying everything's on the table, right? He's talking about maybe somehow combining schedules or combining leagues. Anything is on the table for the Big 12 at this point. What do you make of where that league is and the meeting with the new Pac-12 commission?
Yeah, I saw that they were calling it a potential merger, which the way we had been discussing it, we all just kind of assumed that the Pac-12 was going to inherit or swallow up the Big 12 overall. But this seems like it would be the best case scenario for the Big 12 if they can just call it a merger and not just we are being cannibalized by the Pac-12. I don't know what it means. Like, do they rename the conference then? Who is the commissioner of this new conference? How does this work? That would put them at 20 teams. The other question would be, does anyone feel threatened by this whatsoever and feel like they need to expand even further? I can't imagine that would be the case. If the Big Ten's already not even worried about it, they're not trying to go get Iowa State, they're not trying to get West Virginia or anything like that, they don't feel the need to expand. I can't imagine the Pac-12 adding the tag-along 8, who are all just mediocre programs in almost every sport, except there's a couple good basketball programs in Baylor and Kansas. I can't imagine that would be a threat to anyone, but I'm curious. I guess I would, as just a casual fan that doesn't have anything tied to any of those schools, I guess it would be cool. Maybe the Pac-12 would be competitive, but they're still not a dominant program in that conference, and I don't think it would change the landscape of college football at all, really.
I think the thing that hopped out at me, knowing these guys are meeting, is that the Pac-12 TV contract is done in 2024, so a year earlier than the Big 12. And that 2025 number is still the official year that's out there for Oklahoma and Texas to join the SEC, although I think most of us expect it to become sooner. And 2024 now, if the Pac-12 joins any kind of forces with the Big 12, would be an obvious place to move it back a year. And how much more does that calendar get changed as these discussions continue, as possible options are out there. The merger idea is really interesting. And then that feeds into kind of the super conference mentality that has been rumored about, and even with the SEC going after schools like Ohio State or Florida State, and the Clemson rumor out there and the whole thing. Those to me seem fantastical in a lot of ways, especially anybody involved with the ACC, which has a media contract, I think, for 15 years down the line, crazy like that. But knowing that the Pac-12 deal is up in 2024 and that there are some options now with those 8 teams left over in the Big 12, that certainly has my eyebrows raised with these guys meeting yesterday.
Would that mean, does merger mean that it's always just both of them are combining, or could the merger say, like the Pac-12 say, we'll combine, but we don't want all of you. Like, we'll take the Texas schools and we'll take Oklahoma State, but we have no interest in Kansas State. We have no interest in Iowa State. Is that something that could happen? Is that, or is it just the nature of a merger means that all of the schools will be joining forces?
I don't think anybody knows right now. I mean, if you're asking me what could happen, I feel like there is very little that's off the table right now in college football or college sports kind of realignment in where we're at. And I think that's what that meeting was about yesterday, according to The Athletic, is just, all right, we're going to throw some stuff out there and see what makes the most sense moving forward, or continue just to put it out there. Chris just says Big 12, Pac-12 merger. It's a 2014 conference. No, LOL. It's only 20, of course.
It would be nice to get these numbers right when we finish up this realignment.
No doubt about that. Is that asking too much? I don't think that's asking too much, is it? That it matches the members of it. This should actually be a great example, or a great lesson to these conferences, that you just shouldn't put a number there. If you're going to name a conference, and then you also these days can't even put any geographic location there either, with having Louisville in the Atlantic Coast Conference and Texas A&M and the Southeastern Conference and the whole thing.
The Pac-12 changed. I mean, they adjusted their number when they added to 12 teams. They went from lots of people still call it the Pac-10, and I mean, right. I had gotten caught doing that in the past because you just remember it that way. But for some reason, I think Big Ten fans they just love that name and they're married to it. And if they decided to change to the Big 14, people would say, whoa, what are we doing? This is Big Ten country. We're the Big Ten. What are we talking about? But it's confusing for no reason. It confuses people for absolutely no reason. There's no benefit to it.
0 cents. Chris on the Cool Care Heating and Air text line this morning, 803-404-6100. move Utah and Colorado to what's left of the Big 12, 10 on each side, play 9 games on your side, and the top one on each side play a championship game. Got a simple resolution there. I think college athletics is showing us it's not going to be simple. Whatever happens, it probably won't be the simplest and cleanest way to get things done. Going to try to get it done this morning without Bill Gunter, Tim Hill, Patrick Perrette, and Jen Jensen with you. Jen producing in the Herndon Chevrolet Studios in downtown Columbia. Just getting going on a Wednesday morning. Glad you're a part of the program. It's the early game on 107.5 The Game.
America has built up their lead in the medal count.
Saw that.
76-69.
The old track is helping for sure.
This is weird. The top medal winners. Top individual medal winners. Caleb Dressel is second with 5, but first and third are McKeon and McCown, McKeon, and then McKeown.
Huh.
They had not from the same country. One is Australian and one is Austrian, but their names are almost exactly the same.
That's confusing.
James, congratulations on the 14th anniversary, and I'm guessing maybe one of the reasons why it's working is that she is not listening right now.
I was going to say the exact same thing. So, great minds.
I don't think there is that goofy cliche, right? The couple that stays together listens to the early game together. I don't think that's how that works.
Because that's a lie.
Right.
Big old fat lie.
Yeah, how many are any of the people in the live stream's wives being forced to listen or watch this right now? Like, is this just you come down first and turn the radio on, make your coffee or whatever, and then she comes down and this is just what she has to listen to?
Well, also it might just be on the TV these days.
Yeah.
In the morning, in the background.
I like that we're on TVs. I love that idea. Just coming down and putting the smart TV on the YouTube app.
I mean, that's why you have your hair coiffed perfectly every morning.
Exactly.
This is it's kind of being just held together by grease. I haven't showered yet. Got home late.
Perfect.
See,
Just stuck there now.
You're supposed to keep those secrets. Like, yep, I got a stylist.
It's my secret. I was sweating last night. Got some dust in there. But
Perfect.
Looks good.
Product.
It's just not as fluffy as it would be if I had showered.
Well, it's not smell-o-vision, so we're in good shape.
Right.
Oh, geez, to James's wife this morning. Looks like they're having a duel. Whoever leaves for work first
Gets to listen what they really want.
Wins at home but loses professionally.
I mean, if you want to control the dial, you got to wake up first.
I don't think we've ever gotten that on this show, the TMI. In 5 years, Patrick. Congratulations.
Moving up.
I've always felt like, Bill's rants about, his weight and his, just all of his little specific details. Like, I always thought that was TMI, but I think you win.
Morning, Beverly.
I asked Larry about his birthday. He said he had a very good day.
Excellent.
Good thing. No drama.
Was that Sunday?
Yep.
Now the first.
Did he say if he was trying to call yesterday? Or did he just?
He did not, but I did not see him try to call. Usually he's, pretty Johnny on the spot. Like, if he ain't get through, he'll try again, as you know. So, I think he was giving us time to get our act together and get back into college football.
Oh, I believe trash talking season has officially begun, so watch out, people.
Yep. And now Have Scooter will travel.
Morning, Christy.
Oh, yeah.
So Beverly and Christy answering the call there, Patrick, asking about the female listenership.
Yep. Christy's very active on Twitter.
What is repechage? Repechage?
Stepped in.
You know what that word is? Repechage.
Is it another equestrian event?
No, I think this is wrestling. Where it's just showing the results. One person says advance to final, and the other one it says repechage.
You got me, dude.
A contest in which the best placed of those who failed to win heats compete for a place in the final.
So he didn't win the first match, but scored enough points to still have a place in the final round?
That's what I'm reading in the dictionary.
Okay. Interesting. I haven't seen any boxing on my TV.
Yeah.
Boxing?
My 6-year-old's into boxing, so I had to look it up, and it was on. I'm just recording all the Olympic stuff on my YouTube TV, and it was Spanish-speaking announcers.
Oh.
So he'll learn to speak Spanish too. That's awesome. Look at you being a
See.
parent.
It's not any pros, right? Once they're pros,
Right.
they can't box in the Olympics. Is that the rule?
Believe so.
Oh, head back in, Patrick. Guys,
So Gunther's still off this morning. In case you're turning on your radio specifically for Bill, my apologies. He'll be back tomorrow. Don't worry. We'll get things headed in the right direction this morning. Wanted to say hi to James and happy anniversary. He says happy anniversary to his wife of 14 years, who of course is not listening this morning. Beverly, Christy, Anthony, Carlton, all in this morning as well on the video stream. Glad you're a part of the program. On the Cool Care Heating and Air text line, several of you weighing in on the meeting of the Pac-12 and Big 12 commissioners from yesterday. Anonymous texter says, hey guys, I think the merger would be more about the TV deals and not the teams or conferences themselves. Same teams and same conference, just combine the 3 TV rights deals that would basically allow CBS or Fox or somebody like that to pick up both conferences under one deal, or all 3 if you threw the Big Ten in there. Then you could have a Big 12 game at 12:30, followed by a Pac-12 game at 3, and then a late game of your choice. So you'd be able to basically package everything into one deal using all 20 teams if you just had those 2 conferences, or maybe even more. So yeah, I've seen the idea that the way the other teams in the Power 5 combat what Oklahoma and Texas have done joining the SEC is basically gang up against the SEC, or pull their resources together and negotiate accordingly. Patrick, do you see this happening? To me, that's a really interesting idea, and something that I think would only rival the SEC power in this thing from a television interest. This is the word I'm looking for.
Well, yeah, because they're not going to have the quality at the top, or even the depth. They're not going to have the teams they're not going to have 5 teams that can contend for a 12-team playoff spot year in and year out. So it would make sense for them to just try and combine forces and have more teams and more shots at it. And the TV part, I think, makes sense for sure, because the Pac-12 notoriously has an awful TV deal, right? That's what the last commissioner, like, one of the biggest issues with him was. I don't know exactly what the issue was. Was it just the fact that it was not enough money? Was it the times of the games, or is it both? I know it was known to be bad, and that was something that the new commissioner had said specifically, we're going to get that fixed. But I don't know what the specific issue was. Do you?
Combination. Money and exposure. You don't have enough of it, your conference is in big trouble, especially when you're out on the West Coast, and then you're getting teams to play 9 a.m. games, to have noon Eastern starts, and the whole deal. The Pac-12 after dark games, I think, going away. The one notable thing that you do have, and it's a tough spot for the Pac-12. That's why I think this merger thing makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways. If your deals are coming up, and clearly the television networks haven't jumped at renegotiating real quickly, there's a reason for that. And the only way you can get those teams that are going to be coming down the stretch in the college football playoff, right, is if you have a couple of conferences combined. The Big 12 and Pac-12 could have 5 teams involved in the discussion, right, combined, as opposed to the SEC, who's going to have 5 teams automatically in that discussion every single year, just by the nature of those programs, seemingly. Now, where does the Big Ten fit into all of that is the question, because I don't think they want to be seen as latching on or having to combine forces at all. The Big Ten wants to puff out its chest and say, no, we're the best conference in the country. We're the top. I've seen this time and time again through the years. Usually with Jim Delaney leading the way, I think there is very little confidence that Kevin Warren can be that guy. And clearly with last year's kind of fiasco around COVID and not having a season, then having a season, not a good look and not a great start to that tenure. And it doesn't inspire a bunch of confidence that now the Big Ten can make a corresponding move to what the SEC is doing with Oklahoma and Texas.
Yeah, I doesn't feel like they see the need to do that, but they're kind of in an okay spot, because I'm just thinking for the Pac-12 and I guess of the Pac-12 and Big 12, what can they actually do to compete? I mean, if they move their games up so that they're not at 10:30 p.m. and just completely isolating themselves from a large section of the East Coast, people that aren't going to stay up until midnight or 1 a.m. to watch a college football game, if they play at 7, they just still don't have the quality of games that people are going to want to watch. I mean, I would tune in for if Stanford's playing Oregon or Southern Cal, but they're still never going to outdraw even a lower level SEC game. Like if Auburn and Georgia are playing, no matter how good Auburn is in a given year, that's going to outdraw any Pac-12 game by a lot, I would think. And at least the Big Ten has going for them, they're basically Ohio State. I mean, if Ohio State's playing, people are going to watch, and the Pac-12 and Big 12 don't have anyone like that. So even if Ohio State's playing like Indiana, people are going to tune in and watch that game way more than any Pac-12 combination. And I can't imagine there would be a ton of interest in if they move it up or they call it like a 3 p.m. Southern Cal Baylor game. It just doesn't seem like a sexy matchup at all.
I'm not going to disagree with you. We'll see if we can get a disagreement out of the birthday boy as we head to the Love Chevrolet phone lines right now. Our favorite now, 87.
Over the weekend, Gamecock Larry had a birthday, and Jen tells us, Gamecock Larry, the birthday went well, and you're good to go here as trash talk season has officially begun. Is that right?
No, I'll tell you what. I had a good birthday, really enjoyed it, but I sure will be glad when Tim can get over all this expansion, Tokyo, high school 17-year-old son of $1 million deal. Mom and Daddy don't have nothing else to say about a 17-year-old young'un jumping and going here and there. What in the world happened to the parents? What happened to the family? But let's get down. I'm ready for some football. Are you ready for some football? Oh, Tim ain't ready. He's got to talk about all this other thing. You ain't talking about the Gamecocks for about 2 weeks. You ain't talked very much about my Gamecocks, Tim, but I still love you, buddy. But I tell you what, I got my I got my however phone from one. I don't care who comes into the SEC. I don't care who goes into the Big Ten. I don't care who. I don't know. You can even bring New England if you want to, or Tampa Bay. I don't care. I'm just a Gamecock. And I'm ready for some football. Starting Monday morning, I'm going to call you every morning until I get enough time to talk what I want to talk about. But you guys go ahead, you're doing a fine job. I love you guys. But I'm just excited. I'm excited about the Beamer Steamer, the rain train. We on the way. Go Gamecocks all the way. We'll be in the Final Four in 2024. And Texas and Oklahoma will be on the SC schedule in 2022. What you got to say about that, Tim?
Oh, I thought I couldn't talk about that.
Why?
Somebody was yelling at me on the radio a few minutes ago about it.
No, Tom, I'm just cutting the food, but I feel good. I really do. But I'm ready for some football. I don't worry about Tokyo and worry about, well, I do. I worry about this young man jumping from one state to the other, decommitting from one school to the other and committing to the other school. What in the world happened to the child when
Gamecock Larry, let me stop you right there. If you had a chance to make $1 million after you finished your junior year of high school to go to college and play football, you telling me you wouldn't do it?
Well, I told her what, back when I was coming up, I was over $10 bill in front of my folks and I wrote. but now you know, I don't ask you a question, so what's going to happen? Well, I hope in the world that no. What's going to happen when that young man goes to college next year or something happens? And he can't play no more football. He can't, you know what I mean? I don't want it to happen. But do you think them adults that's making that deal with that young man going to worry about him anymore and pay him $1 million?
No.
No. They going to forget about it.
But that's the great deal. He'll already have $1 million. You
know how much liver pudding you could buy with $1 million?
That's a lot of liver pudding.
Okay,
Great point.
No, another thing, who in the world, you name one basketball player's worth $200 million. Steph Curry, $200 million. You think he's worth that much money?
He's worth it twice. He's the first guy to do it twice.
They done got us poor old country boys like Gamecock Larry. They done got where I can't go to a high school game anymore. It costs so much. That's all right. We're going to be okay. Go Gamecocks. We're going to be in the Final Four in 2024. Harris going to get more yardage than those Spiller. Luke Doty is going to be the number 2 quarterback in the SEC. The Gamecocks going to be number 7 when the SEC is over. And going to be number 2 in the East. I'm about to tell everything I was going to tell you Monday. But go Gamecocks. Last talking for. I love you guys. Love you guys.
We love you too. How about that? 87-year-old, his debut as our favorite 87-year-old caller right there.
You know what?
On fire.
I think that's proof that a pacemaker is a good thing. Because he has sounded amazing since that. You know, that's just
Great
giving new life.
Great to hear from Gamecock.
Morning. Glad he's feeling well, fired up. Got us fired. It got me fired up anyway, Patrick. I don't know about you.
I love he didn't call it all this week yet. He was trying to remember all the things, all of his grievances from the last 3 days. It was beautiful. He pretty much covered everything we talked about this week.
No doubt that he didn't want to talk about it. You see how he did that? He just berated us for talking about it. Who cares about that stuff? And then backed his opinion right in there, just like a pro.
What are we doing?
Keep
pushing back trash talk season, though.
I don't know. I love that it has to be official trash talk season for Gamecock Larry, who Anthony says he will sponsor Gamecock Larry for any high school football game he wants to go to. I buy Gamecock Larry's high school game tickets, Anthony says. So Gamecock Larry, there you go. You got a free pass any high school football game you want to go to. And Anthony will back it up because Patrick right now has a white sponsored by Anthony, courtesy of Anthony, an unofficial sponsor of this program.
You know what? We appreciate Anthony because, he takes care of us.
Exactly.
And always tune in 3 hours.
That's beautiful.
We
faithful listener. Yep. Tested his listening ability as he showed up on the live stream yesterday at 7 a.m. He knew exactly what we were talking about at 6. He was just laying low and letting others weigh in a little bit more than he might. 803-404-6100 if you would like to join the show now. Good luck following Gamecock Larry. Patrick, you mentioned what a crazy day it was in NFL training camps yesterday, and former Gamecock JT eBay kind of leading the way at Panthers camp with a vicious hit, and then a near immediate cut after that. What's going on with the Indianapolis Colts might be one of the weirdest things I have ever seen in all of sports. Give you the details on that when we come back. It's the game here on 107.5 The Game. Trey. Sounds like you guys could be the fundraising arm of the Gamecock Larry's posse there, the GCL. That, of course, you guys can be co-treasurers, Trey and Anthony.
Yeah, Anthony and Trey on the high school tickets, and Clemson John just said he would sponsor the liver pudding.
Nice.
Still never had liver pudding.
Yeah.
I would like to try it, but I don't really want to buy it.
Sure.
How was it? You know, Allison Felix is still in the Olympics. How old is she?
I think high 20s, maybe low 30s,
Mid 30s.
mid 30s.
She's 35.
Impressive.
She's running in the 400 meters. Jeez. We had Sydney McLaughlin break the 400 hurdles record last night.
Is that a question?
We did have it. Watched it. World record.
No, I did not see that.
No, I just was noting it.
Gotcha.
I haven't seen that many world records broken.
And you wonder, is there going to be a time where you're just not going to see records broken? Like, there's only so.
I would think so, right?
You know.
I heard a distance runner say that he doesn't think that the mile record will be broken.
Really?
Because I mean, it's just going to things will get broken by 1/100th of a second, and then at a certain point you're just fully maxed out. I don't know when the 40 at the NFL Combine will stop getting broken.
Right.
Because the next one is breaking 4.2. But like, we'll never get under 4 seconds. No one will ever run a sub 4 second 40. That's just outrageous.
Well, don't you think people said that about the 4-minute mile and the 10-second 100? And
I don't know. I guess there just has to be a limit to what the human body can do. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I think
that's
exactly
when you start manufacturing the fake parts, surgically inserting those, becoming robots, cyborgs. Good to go. There you go. We heard it first from Sonny.
Her name's a blast from the past.
Allison Felix, second place in her heat at 35 years old. Impressive.
It was interesting to watch Simone Biles last night, do hers, and how they said that she already knew by changing her dismount, that she was going to take like 0.4 of a point off. So like even performing, she went in knowing she was probably not going to get gold because the fact that she reduced the difficulty. But still, it was a spot-on performance. So that was kind of fun to see. And the 7-year-olds from China.
Insane.
I mean, they look so like just little girls.
Yeah, a lot of the gymnasts do. And then you hear them talk and you're just like, oh my gosh. Like Suni Lee, I mean, just looking at her, she could have, I guess, been the same age as Simone Biles, but when you hear her talk, you're like, oh yeah, you are a child.
Right. Yep.
You guys, I was watching a little bit of the men's gymnastics. It was the high bar from Japan. Yep. He missed twice. You guys see that?
No.
Wiped out pretty hard.
Yeah, the first one was like on his back and his head smacks it, and then the second one, like face first. Great.
I mean, thankfully he caught a little bit of the bar and broke his fall, but that was a long.
And I gotta look at that. All right, we're heading back in. Ooh, somebody crashed. I must go watch. Okay, guys, we're up.
Hey, in a few weeks, we'd love to see you out at Charwood Golf Club. Going to have our 14th anniversary celebration, the 107.5 The Game Golf Tournament presented by Integrated Media at Charwood. Give them a call at 803-755-2000 if you would like to sign up. Our four-man Captain's Choice Golf Tournament tees off at 10 a.m. Friday, August 27th. We'll have Panera breakfast for you, Little Pig's lunch, raise some money for Camp Cole, give away a trip to Kiowa for the winning team, raffle off a pair of tickets for the Gamecock football season opener there. That will be 8 days away on August 27th. Again, that's the 107.5 The Game 14th anniversary golf tournament presented by Integrated Media. Hope to see you out there on August 27th at Charwood. Indianapolis Colts. First of all, Carson Wentz goes down, right? You trade or you bring Carson Wentz in, feel like you move on from the Phillip Rivers era, who now says he hasn't ruled out a return back to football, which is weird in and of itself. But you get Carson Wentz, you got to be optimistic. You got Darius Leonard, the South Carolina product, probably the best linebacker in the league. He's also dealing with injury coming off surgery too. But you got this weird thing with Carson Wentz, Patrick. And as I understand it, it's an old injury that was basically some kind of fracture in his foot, and then a bone pops loose, right?
Yeah.
It just happens to pop loose. He has to have surgery, going to be out 5 to 12 weeks. And then the next day, is it the dude who snaps him the ball?
No,
Their center?
Guard.
Sorry. The guy that's
So
right
the best-
beside him.
Probably the best overall lineman in football.
Quentin Nelson, is that right?
Yeah, he's a monster.
The exact same injury in the foot? The
Yeah,
exact
basically.
same surgery? The exact same doctor does the surgery?
Yes, basically the same injury. I heard Frank Reich talk about it and kind of break it down in layman's terms yesterday. And in both of them, there's just kind of a floating little piece of bone that's in their foot, and it's never an issue until it's an issue. So Carson Wentz hurt his foot in high school, and as a part of that injury or whatever happened there's a tiny little piece of bone floating around that he played through, but something happened and he stepped right and the bone moved into a place where it was bone on bone or something like that, and it became an issue just out of nowhere. And he had to get surgery, and it's 5 to 12 weeks. And then the next day, Quentin Nelson was born with, I guess, just a little bit of excess bone or something like that. So just some sort of deformity where there's just a tiny little piece floating around that his entire life had never been an issue, but somehow he planted his foot or something happened, and the bone moved into a place that caused him massive amounts of pain. So he also has to get that little piece removed. I can't imagine what the odds of this are.
I am not a conspiracy theory kind of guy. I always want to shoot that down real quick, but there certainly is something extra to a lot of seasons, right? Whether it's positive or negative. Championship seasons, you usually get bounces and breaks and the whole deal. Clearly, Tom Brady has some positive mojo with him, and I got to think it's on the other side here for the Indianapolis Colts. You can't win any Super Bowls in training camp. You feel like you can lose them. And when your quarterback and your best offensive lineman have this happen to you, poor Colts fans, man. I mean, it's August 4th, and you got this going down. Give Frank Reich, their coach, some credit. Like, every team going to face some adversity. Might as well face it earlier instead of later. Good luck, Colts fans. Good luck. Hour number 2, we're going to need all the luck we can get. It's coming up.
This is Gamecock Athletics Director Ray Tanner, and you're listening to 107.5
Definitely getting close, Chris, wouldn't you say, Patrick?
I mean, yeah. But I don't know how many more years of this. I guess that's what it's always going to be, is people will blame injuries. But he was not hurt last year, and he was just really bad. So I don't know where the public sentiment is on him.
Well, I feel like if he doesn't come back and play anywhere close to the near MVP level he played at a couple of years ago from this injury, then he would just write him off. And yeah.
Yeah, because he was incredible for 1 year, and then the worst quarterback in the league for 1 year, and then everything else has been marred with injuries. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of with Kevin, though. That division is suspect in a lot of places. The Texans are awful. The Colts are potentially screwed. And who knows about the Titans? Like, the Titans have been on a nice little run.
It is the National League East right now, the AFC South.
Could be. I mean, the Titans have a chance to be very good, but they're also counting on a lot. I mean, Julio Jones has to be the Julio Jones he's always been. Their defense is not very good. They lost a lot. And Derrick Henry, like, there's no necessarily reason to believe that he will slow down soon. But I know that the analytics people, there's a lot of benchmarks in terms of carries per year where they've seen drastic downturns in production, and Derrick Henry has hit all of those benchmarks. So if there was a time to predict the wheels beginning to fall off for him, the numbers would say that it's about that time. But I don't know if we've ever seen anybody like Derrick Henry. It's pretty incredible that he gets so many carries, never gets hurt, never fumbles, never loses yards. He's just as reliable as they come as a runner. Is he going to be considered for the Hall of Fame at some point? I don't know.
Who's that?
So what does Derrick Henry need to do?
Oh, yeah.
Be in Hall of Fame discussion. Nobody ever talks about him, or I've never thought about him in that regard. But 2,000 yards and leading like another rushing title would be hard to debate.
Yeah, I think he's in on the borderline right now. But you're right. One more really good season, stamp it.
Edgerrin James is getting inducted this weekend, isn't he?
Sounds right.
I don't know what year he was drafted. Let's see.
He's about my age.
I was young for his career, but he was drafted in '99. So yeah, I don't remember the beginning of his career. I never thought that he was a Hall of Famer. You watch Edgerrin James?
Yeah. Oh yeah, he did.
And that was your thought? He's a Hall of Famer. When he retired, you were like, he's going to be in Canton.
Yep.
Maybe I just gave all the credit to Peyton and never really thought about anyone else.
Well, that's the thing, man. The Colts pre-Peyton Manning were just so bad.
Right.
That I give them a ton of credit. James, a bunch of it as well.
I don't really know what running backs in my lifetime were surefire Hall of Famers. Obviously, LT was definitely the best.
You were too early for Marshall Faulk, too, right?
Yeah, I remember him at the end. I remember that Super Bowl vaguely and playing with him in a video game at a young age, but not watching him like that. I remember the end of Bettis.
Right. In your lifetime, man, running backs, it's totally different in my lifetime. Like the first one that I remember is John Riggins.
Right.
Then Walter Payton was the man then, and Barry Sanders took it over after that. Emmitt Smith after that. It was like the heyday for running back.
Yeah, I mean, there have been good ones, a lot of very good ones, but I guess they just didn't do it long enough. I mean, I remember when I was young, one of the first ones that was my favorite was Priest Holmes. Priest Holmes was a beast for the Chiefs, but I don't think he did it very long. AP is going to walk in. Yeah, he's one of the greatest of all time, so he's a surefire. Outside of that, I've seen a couple 2,000-yard seasons. Jamal Lewis was a force for a while, but I don't know how long he did it. Chris Johnson didn't do it for long enough, wasn't the best for long enough in his 2,000-yard season.
Yeah, your lifetime is all about blip guys.
Yeah.
Year or two guy.
Like Clinton Portis was a 1,500-yard guy year in and year out, but that doesn't necessarily make you a Hall of Famer.
Right.
Deuce McAllister was one of my early guys for the Saints.
Well, Freddie T back in the day, man.
Yeah. I think Curtis Martin's in, isn't he?
Curtis Martin, yep, should be.
2012, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember Terrell Davis. Don't really remember Emmett. I remember Emmett Smith on the Cardinals.
Oh, wow. That's so weird to me.
Like I think he regrets doing that, but he wanted to break the record. Arian Foster was the best for a couple years, but again, not there.
Wow. Yeah, you've got an interesting time of NFL running backs for sure, man. The most.
Yeah, so I guess Derrick Henry the last couple of years has been as good as I've seen in a while, other than Adrian Peterson.
Well, also too, they become. I mean, outside of Henry, it's been more about catching the football, or
Right.
as about catching the football as it has about anything else. You got what McCaffrey obviously leading the way now. Alvin Kamara, Saquon Barkley, those guys. I think there could get another kind of boon.
Le'Veon Bell was certainly that in a couple years ago when he was the man.
Yeah.
But that was Marshall Faulk starting that, from what I know about at least history.
For sure. It was Marshall Faulk starting that.
LaDainian Tomlinson was great catching the football. I would say he's the best that I can remember watching, or just wanting to tune in. It felt like every time I put on a Chargers game, LaDainian Tomlinson was scoring a touchdown.
Jen, we doing normal 3 breaks here? So you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, I'm editing. I was saving the Gamecock Larry stuff. Yeah, I didn't finish typing. Sorry.
It's okay. And just type in a live or two there so I can know where to go.
Yep.
But we got time. Which record you talking about, Kev?
LaDainian Tomlinson, I thought.
32 in a season? Is that what it is?
I know he scored the most. I didn't know if the number was 32. Sounds right.
That is pretty crazy. 2 per
No.
game.
It's an outrageous number.
Guys are up.
Gamecock Larry's fired up, and so are we. Glad you're joining us in hour number 2. Hope your Wednesday's off to a good start. If you're just waking up and getting going, here's what you need to know about sports this morning. Team USA women's basketball rolling again over Australia into the semifinal round. Now, Asia Wilson with 10 points in that game, so I think that might be her lowest scoring game. Went into it averaging 20 and 10. Didn't need her to produce too much in this thing. I think it was Breanna Stewart who led the way for Team USA women's basketball in that 24-point win. And Team USA, 53 wins now in a row in the Olympics in that route. Never a doubt there. That's what Dawn Staley and company, I think, were expected to do. And it's the first time they've really hit on all cylinders, with Stewart scoring 20 over 23 in the first half. Impressive stuff. And now Serbia is up next to upset China in the quarterfinals. So that will be on Friday, the semifinal game for Team USA women. Any other Olympic updates that we should throw out there this morning to let everybody know what's going on, Patrick, as we start hour number 2?
I don't think so. I know last night a world record was broken. I mentioned the live stream, but Sydney McLaughlin broke the 400-meter hurdles record. I haven't seen much else. Right now I'm watching wrestling and then a steeplechase / high jump. They're going back and forth between. So that's what I got going right now.
Big college football news yesterday was that the Big 12 and Pac-12 commissioners set to meet and then talking about all options on the table, including maybe merging in a TV deal in the future, which could keep the conferences separate, and yet they could have a a combined TV deal, which is something that we've never seen before. But we've never seen Oklahoma and Texas in the SEC. So all options kind of being discussed, including, I guess, creating what would be a bit of a super conference. And there are 20 teams combined there between the Big 12 and Pac-12, even though that math doesn't work out at all. But that's where we are in college sports, where math and geography mean absolutely nothing when it comes to conference names. From the NFL standpoint, it wasn't long after our show when JT eBay delivered his final hit as a Carolina Panther in training camp yesterday in Spartanburg. It was Keith Kirkwood, the wide receiver, in kind of a defenseless position. eBay released a statement afterwards saying, yeah, he didn't mean anything by the hit, was just trying to jar the ball loose, but should have gone about it a different way, sent Kirkwood to the hospital. The prognosis is positive for a guy who missed all of last season, I think, because of a different injury. But about 90 minutes after JT eBay delivered that hit, he was immediately kicked out of practice and then cut after that thing. So the former Gamecock will not be with the Carolina Panthers anymore. And that kind of was the headline for us, for sure, from both Panthers and Gamecock standpoint. But a busy, newsworthy day all around NFL training camps yesterday, Patrick.
Yeah, I always, when things like this happen, I try to look at the reaction from other players. It didn't seem like anyone was protesting JT eBay being cut. It seemed like a lot of players were kind of like, yeah, that's just something you don't do in practice, especially when you don't have any clout really, and you're going to be lucky to make the team to begin with. You can't be out there injuring your teammates. I've seen it. I mean, we've seen it a couple times. I remember a couple years ago, Jonathan Abram from Mississippi State is known to be that guy that just cannot turn it off. I know he injured one of his teammates in the Mississippi State spring game, his senior year, his last year there, whatever it was. I don't know if he came out early, but they had to call the spring game early because he hurt one of his teammates with a dirty hit, and he was hitting guys in training camp, and John Gruden had to tell him, you need to relax, buddy. But he was a first-round pick, so what were they going to do? They weren't going to cut their first-round pick. It's definitely a message, but yeah, I don't know anything about JT eBay personally. I can't recall any of his press conferences or meeting with the medias. I can't really remember seeing anything from him on social media, so I don't know if he's that kind of just high energy guy that is just always on, like only knows one speed. But it's a mistake, and I'm guessing that will be the end of his NFL career, because we were surprised to see him get picked up for the Panthers in the first place. And a guy that was probably not on most teams' radars is probably not going to help his case when he's cut from the team by hurting a player practice.
Well, tremendous numbers in the pro day workout that J.C. Horn starred in last year, or the spring, I guess it was, before the draft. I mean, the numbers from JT eBay were very similar to J.C. Horn. I think he was a little slower in the 40-yard dash, which is very important, but he plays safety where you can get away with that a little bit. To me, he is one of those representatives of the Will Muschamp era. I feel like a guy who came in, a grad transfer, to play a position that Will Muschamp had the reputation of coaching up personally, and that was one of his strong suits. And it was a weak part of the Carolina program for several years, the defensive secondary, and especially safety. And he was a guy that was a long shot to make the Carolina Panthers as a free agent, no doubt about it. But unfortunately for him, just made a mistake yesterday, admitted it afterwards. No ill will meant, but that's the tricky part about this time of year, right? And we saw it with the Giants yesterday, getting in a big brawl with their quarterback Daniel Jones on the bottom of the pile. Like, sometimes emotions get the best of people, or aggression probably might be the best way to put that. Aggression overtakes reason or logic or anything like that, because I can't imagine, especially this, if you've ever been near the sideline in college football, you see the speed, and then take that to another level in the NFL. The split second you have to make these decisions as a defensive back, even just to go for the ball or go for the man, right? And these plays over the middle or wherever. And then as a guy trying to make the team and make an impression and the whole thing, I see how it happens. I think it was the reaction from Matt Rule that was probably the most notable, just how ticked off he was that this happened and that a Carolina Panthers player did this to another Carolina Panthers player.
Yeah, I can't even.
Fortunate on kind of every level.
It for sure is, but I can't even imagine the sense of desperation from a guy who knows that he's towards the end of the depth chart in NFL training camp. Like, what these guys are playing for is their livelihood and the chance to be wealthy beyond what they could have ever guessed, or out of the game, never play football again, and you got to go find a job in the real world. You might not have had internships or anything like that. So, I mean, they are absolutely desperate and doing anything they can to make the team. So, yeah, it's hard to, without having seen the hit, and if it was just completely malicious or dirty, I can't imagine it was. But you understand him wanting to do what he can. But Matt Rule, it probably had to be done. It's one thing when a guy is hurt with a non-contact injury or something, but it's almost embarrassing for the organization or for a coach when you're going into, if you were going into a game week and it's like, yeah, I don't have one of my starting receivers because my safety injured him in practice. I mean, that's just a bad look. You can't have it. So I don't think there will be any other cases of this in Panthers training camp. And I think a lot of guys around the league definitely took notice of that. And there's probably coaches after yesterday where there's a brawl with the quarterback getting pinned in the Giants camp. You've got Matt Stafford's going to miss, I don't know how long, but he's got a swollen thumb because he hit somebody's helmet. And then you've got JT eBay getting cut because he concussed a guy and sent a guy to the hospital in practice. I think this morning in every NFL training camp, there's a team meeting right now, and they're emphasizing do not hurt each other. Like, you are a team, and you have to figure out a way to dial it back. You're the best athletes in the world. This can't be happening. So I think yesterday was a very, very newsy day in terms of training camp drama, and I would think that that's going to set the tone for the rest of the offseason. We're not going to hear much more of it.
Football season is here in that way, and it kicks off this Friday for Gamecocks practice. I guess officially reporting the Gamecocks do tomorrow, although that is not what it used to be because of off-season workouts and basically everybody's already in town to begin with. Speaking of secondary, where JT eBay played for Will Muschamp and Company, Shane Beamer, now Torian Gray, kind of charged with retooling that secondary. Now that J.C. Horn is with the Carolina Panthers and Israel Mukwamu is with the Dallas Cowboys, has already made a few plays. I've seen video-wise in Cowboys training camp. But Shane Beamer asked about it recently, about the secondary and the depth, which was razor thin in the spring. And things have changed there. We'll get into that and plenty more Gamecock football discussion, as we were highly encouraged by our favorite 87-year-old caller when Gamecock Larry hit us up in hour number 1, who is fired up, and a bunch of you weighed in on that. Rooster Pete did so from Illinois this morning in the 18-wheeler. Gamecock Larry crowing loud and proud, strutting around with his chest out. Sharp Spurs said Gamecock Larry for honorary coach on team staff. But Go Gamecocks and Clemson Sean would like to provide Larry with unlimited amounts of liver pudding. So more scholarships for Gamecock Larry this morning. Anthony going to sponsor him for all high school football events that he wants to get into because he was complaining about the price of high school football tickets. And Richard, even with a rare positive text in from Richard, I think. Man, y'all got Larry fired up. We absolutely did. Well, I think it might be more the other way. He might have gotten us fired up more than we got him fired up. We will try to keep that energy as we roll on, and we'll talk Gamecock secondary specifically when we come back. It's the early game on 107.5. How about top 5 positions, area of concern for Gamecock football?
There might only be 4.
You have a 4?
Yeah, and realistically, I think there's only 3 if you just
What do you have a
combine.
4? I can't see 4. No, yeah, that. So if you put secondary together, you would have 4?
I think if I just put secondary together, I'd really just have 3. I'm not that concerned with linebacker, but
For real? Yeah, I can't wait to hear
there's at least guys. I don't know.
your discussion there. Wow. Maybe the biggest insult you could have. I mean, there are guys there.
That played and been okay. Yeah, I think those are the only areas I think so. Yeah, I guess punter.
Guy Kroger's on the preseason red guy list. What are you talking about?
How many people are on the preseason red guy list?
Basically, anyone who's ever punted before.
That sounds like it. He can hit a big ball, but there were some control issues and helping field position.
And you do have a phone call.
Oh, yeah. Rocky Top Al, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm not sure which team he wants to talk about, but I said I'd let him on.
What is the most important attribute to a great pole vault? Body strength. Roll.
Say timing.
Timing of what? When start, whatever they do, flailing their body so they can get over the ball.
Hit it. Sticking the pole in exactly the stride that you need to spring as high as you possibly can.
Because I could see that being very easy to face plant in that sport.
I would think so. Yeah.
Thanks for the heads up, Kev. So if you do that, make sure to then text us instead of live stream message us, because then I'm totally confused.
We don't want that. And we're about to head back in. You're up.
Gamecock Larry fired up. First call is 87-year-old Gamecock Larry after birthday over the weekend. Happy birthday to Gamecock Larry. And it really is that time of year. Gamecock Larry was fired up. You can hear it in his voice. We're talking about NFL training camp news. It's one of the reasons why the grand opening at Palmetto Express off of I-26 exit 125 is happening tomorrow in conjunction with the kickoff of Gamecock football practice. A great time to celebrate all across of our area. And you're going to get free stuff if you head over to Palmetto Express tomorrow afternoon. The halftime show guys will be there. There'll be free frozen drinks, free coffees given away. Check out all the food that they'll be cooking up for any kind of tailgating needs for Gamecock football. They got chicken wings. They got the fruit and veggie trays, anything you need. That's what you'll see out of Palmetto Express. And they'll have a blood drive going tomorrow afternoon as well from noon until 4. Love to see you guys out there. The halftime show guys will be live on location. That's 495 Old Sandy Run Road in Gaston off exit 125 on I-26. mentioned the secondary. And J.C. Horn, Israel Mukwama, headed to the NFL. Last year, it was R.J. Roderick also opting out towards the end of the season. And these were the guys who played on what can only be described as a subpar secondary last year. The secondary for the Gamecocks did not play well. It's hard for me to even think about those two things, right? J.C. Horn, the first defensive player taken in the NFL draft. Israel Mukwama, drafted by the Dallas Cowboys in the 6th round. Those are your starting corners last year. And yet it was a defense that struggled. And you had R.J. Roderick back there as your starting safety who opted out towards the end and now has come back and is really the only player with much experience at all for the Gamecock secondary in a Gamecock uniform. Now, on Gamecock Central, seeing the headline that Shane Beamer and Torian Gray feel good about their secondary. And this is the exact opposite tone that you got from both these guys in the spring. And it's because 5 more guys are in, including a couple of, not 3, I should say, including 3 guys with experience from the transfer portal. And Tyrese Ross from Washington State, Karan Prunty, also from Kansas, was a freshman All-American. Then you got Carlins Patel coming up from Division II college football. Assumption College, I believe, is where he was at.
And you got a couple grad transfers as well. Isaiah Norris, Marcellus Dial, and I think that's it.
Ladarian Craig also coming in as a new player in the secondary. So from the number standpoint, it's much, much better than it was in the spring. The question is, Patrick, for you, where do you put the secondary, or if you want to split them up between safeties and corners, where do you put them on your list of concerns from a position standpoint for Gamecock football? You got the whiteboard up behind you on the video stream. You got 1 through 5. Let's hear some numbers in some positions.
Well, I needed to do 5, or that was the question, and I just separated safeties and corners for the sake of trying to get to 5 because I don't have 5 serious concerns. But yeah, the defensive back, I think the defensive backfield and the wide receivers are kind of similar to me in the way that they're set up. Like, there's lots of names, guys that have flash potential at times. And if you're going to include Amarian Brown, there's a combination of guys who transferred that are expected to potentially contribute and start and be one of your more important pieces. But I think both of those units are going to try to be protected. The defensive line is going to have to be applying pressure at all times in order to take pressure off of the secondary and try and make their lives easier, just as the running game is going to need to be dominant and the tight ends are going to have to be utilized in a big way to take pressure off the wide receivers. So if I was asked to project who's even going to start, I couldn't tell you who the 5 are going to be in the 4-2-5, but you've got to think that Jalen Dickerson played well at times. I would think he would be involved there. Maybe R.J. Roderick is best suited for that star role, or maybe Jamar Brown is taking up that spot. It's hard to tell with some of these transfers because Tyrese Ross, he didn't register many stats, and I certainly did not watch much Washington State last year, so I'm not sure what he's made of really. But you feel good about Karan Prunty. He was a freshman All-American. A lot of people rated him very highly. So you would think that he's going to come in and step up right away and be a starter. And outside of that, the only person I feel really good about is everyone's been raving about Cam Smith. So you think this would be the time where Cam Smith, he was highly recruited, kind of thrust into the lineup too early and had a rough go of it early on, and it maybe hurt his confidence a little bit. But now that he's going through an off season of kind of being the guy, hopefully that will give him the confidence, and you can maybe expect him to play pretty well. So I'd feel confident that he and Prunty would probably be your starting pair of corners. And then you've just got that recruiting class, those 3 guys that came in together under Muschamp, Joey Hunter, Dominic Hill, and O'Donnell Fortune. It sounds like, just from the way they talk, O'Donnell Fortune has been the best in terms of just being versatile. I know they've put him at safety a lot, so maybe he slots in there. It's just going to be a matter of meshing. Like, there's guys that I think can play, but I just don't know how they're all going to get along together. And the communication in the secondary is going to be the most important part. You can't have busted coverages and guys running wide open down the middle and Lane Kiffin throwing his clipboard up in the air because of the way, as soon as the ball is snapped, he sees how the coverage shifts and he knows that he's going to have an open runner down the middle of the field. You can't have that. So that we will not know until we see them on the field together. But it's for sure an area of concern just because no one's been dominant or even really solid in the SEC like there has been on the defensive line and in the running back room.
Well, speaking of what you can't have running free in the secondary and the whole deal, Anonymous Texter hits us up, Cool Care Heating and Air text line. Do you think they may decide not to put 5 DBs on the field if that's a weak spot? Talking about Clayton White's 4-2-5 defensive alignment and philosophy, and no, is my simple answer for that. It seems like that is right, and he'll make some tweaks off of it, but that is what brought him to South Carolina as a defensive coordinator. You don't change who you are as a coach simply because concerns at positions. And I think that's why Shane Beamer and Torian Gray, who coaches the defensive, are feeling a lot better about their depth and their options there. But will be very interesting to see. I think at times you probably won't see some 5 defensive backs out there. And Clayton White has talked about, sometimes you'll go more of a 4-3 or a 3-4 and you make tweaks. But it seems to be that that's his system, and that's what they're going to do. T-Ray on the Facebook live stream asked about the positions of concern, and he says cornerback, linebackers, and wide receiver. And I think it's fair because of now what we see from Gamecock football in years past, even with good corners in J.C. Horn and Israel McQuallen, knowing those guys are not there anymore, and now knowing the pressure that will be on them. And the pedigree of corners at South Carolina is good, Patrick. It's real good. And the guys who are on the roster right now haven't done it in a Gamecock uniform. You got to give credit where credit is due, right? Cam Smith was a high school All-American, hasn't performed at South Carolina through a couple of years. You got Karan Prunty coming in as a freshman All-American from Kansas, hasn't done it in the SEC. We'll see. Jason on the Facebook live stream going with position of concern wide receiver. I think it's easier to hide a weaker wide receiver core than it is a weaker secondary. Would you agree with that, Patrick? Because you are going to get attacked when your secondary struggles, and there's not a ton you can do about it. I'm with you. It will certainly help if the defensive line is good. And the more pressure you can get on a quarterback, the better your secondary is going to be. But I think offenses will scheme around that real quick, and especially in 2021 when the ball gets out so quickly in most offenses, I don't think you can hide a secondary as well as you can hide a wide receiver core that isn't as strong, where you can try to run the football more, throw to your running backs, throw to your tight ends, that kind of deal.
Yeah, I think that's just the nature of offense versus defense. I mean, you are controlling what's going on offense. If you're struggling to get wide receivers open, you can do things with changing the formations or using putting guys in motion and just doing weird things like that. Or you can just ignore them altogether and focus on the running back, the running game, and the tight ends. And there's ways to work around it, but there's nowhere to hide on defense. I mean, if you can't play, you can't play. You can try to say, okay, we can't cover this guy man to man. We'll switch to zone and just try and swarm to the ball carrier. But at the end of the day, your 11 guys are having to cover their 11 guys, and the coaches are going to make sure that they're going to put your guys in bad positions. You can't have weak spots there. And that's the only hope, is if the secondary is potentially a weak spot of this team, that the defensive line is just going to have to get there that much sooner. And the only good thing there is that you do feel like there's a good amount of depth on that defensive line. So you're not going to have the same 4 guys just rushing and tiring out all the time. You'll be able to rotate them so that the guys can keep their ears pinned back all game long.
DC says, I think it's quarterback, his position of highest concern, and hits us up on the Cool Care Heating and Air text line. With the addition of the transfers, I think we'll have enough ability to be a decent secondary. I'm way more concerned about the linebacker position. We will discuss the merits of those concerns as we kick off the second half of the show. Coming up next, if you would like to join, love to have your opinion at 803-404-6100. You can call or text. It's the early game here on 107.5 The Game. Man, yesterday the 1+-year-old was on fire around my house, and it's not a good thing. He's at that stage where he can't quite communicate with the words, and it's just noises and babble and the whole thing. And usually come feeding time, it is an absolute mess, and our floors look just like they've gone through a war zone afterwards. And it reminds me how much I appreciate Zero Res. Zero Res carpet and air duct cleaning's been out to my house a couple of times, done a great job cleaning my carpets, cleaning the area rug in our living room, also freshened up the tiles in the kitchen and the bathroom, and left us with that fresh home feel that we certainly don't get these days with that 1-year-old. But we need to get Zero Res back out to our house, because Zero Res not only gave us those great professional results, but they did it differently than anybody else. They have a patented powered water system. That means no harsh chemicals involved in their process. That is especially important in my house with an 8-year-old, 6-year-old boy, and the 1-year-old boy completely running us ragged. Nothing to worry about when it comes to harsh chemicals. Also, no leftover soapy residue attracting more dirt on the carpets. Our carpets have stayed cleaner longer. Yours can as well. And they've got a great summer sale for you. 3 rooms of carpet cleaned, only $119, plus a free hallway when you mention me, Tim Hill. Give them a call at 803-262-4020. You can book your appointment online right now at ZeroResColumbia.com. That's Zero Res. Spell it backwards or forwards. It's the right way to clean. What you watching?
Looks like someone just pulled something in the middle of the 400 doing it hard. He is inconsolable right now. He has into a wheelchair. She's pushing the wheelchair away. She wants to walk it off.
Rude.
A cramp in the Olympics. Tough break. Oh, no. Maybe she twisted something.
Yeah, very rarely are those things cramps.
She's jogging it off. Apparently, it's insanely hot.
That can't help at all.
I would have never known what the weather in Japan was like, but I mean, an island, you got to think it's probably pretty drastic temperatures. I think that's what you usually get on an island.
I think I've seen it in the beach volleyball where it's like 86, but the humidity is pretty high as well.
I'd heard something about the tennis matches were just brutally hot. Ooh. Are the fastest people in the middle lanes in basketball?
Fastest people in the middle lanes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she was probably the favorite then. She was in the 4.
Yep, 4, 5, and 6. I think maybe 4 and 5 actually the best one.
Ivan Hendrickson, giant Norwegian dude. This guy's gonna throw this hammer a mile.
Let's get this back up.
Yeah, so I mean, come on, suck it up. 90 degrees, it's the Olympics. I don't want to hear about it. It is the summer games, isn't it?
Well, exactly.
You can still cramp. Guess you should be hydrated.
I don't think there's any concern about the Olympic Village being too crazy this year.
No. Do the Olympians usually stay until the closing ceremonies?
Depends. I think how big time they are.
A lot of people are already back. I guess this is just a different year.
Yeah, this year, there's no reason to stay in the state of emergency Tokyo and longer than you have to, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, I would think the closing ceremonies would be pretty minuscule.
My 6-year-old is like, why do they do the opening ceremonies? They're boring. But think about it. Like, he saw the opening ceremonies in an empty stadium. How dumb is that? Like, what kind of an introduction to the Olympics?
That's true.
Are kids getting this thing?
Like what Beijing was 2008, and that was the crazy 100,000 drummers, just wild showing. And even I at 13 was like, all right, I don't care. I went back and watched it this year, and I was like, this is unreal. But at the time, I just did not care.
All right, so I'll be asking you to defend your number one when we come back, sir.
Okay.
And your collar's still here if you want him.
Oh yeah, Rocky Top Al.
Yeah.
I guess I'll do that. We'll do that first.
Yeah.
Knowing that is a concern there, or maybe not at Tennessee. They haven't named Hooker the starter, I don't think yet.
I don't think so. My sources tell me that is pretty much a done deal, though.
Well, I was listening to Heupel yesterday. He's like, yeah, we'll name it starting quarterback week 1. We want to have a starter. Great.
I mean, my best friend's little brother is a freshman quarterback there, and Hooker is the starter.
Yeah, sure.
Position of greatest concern from the Gamecock football standpoint. Patrick, number 1 on his whiteboard is quarterback. I'll get him to defend that or explain that in just a second. First, we're going to go to the Love Chevy phone lines where another program has some quarterback
marks. I think it's fair. Rocky Top Al, what do you think about the Tennessee quarterback position? And good morning. Welcome into the show, sir.
Well, guys, I'm from Knoxville, and I come over to South Carolina every 2 weeks to work, and I listen to your show. And it almost sounds like I'm listening to a talk show from Knoxville because the defensive back concern for the Volunteers and certainly quarterback is. We went through spring practice, and Harrison Bailey was not talked about much. Hendon Hooker was supposed to be the guy. And the orange and white game, Harrison Bailey was 14 for 16. I mean, he played really well, and Hendon Hooker looked like he hadn't been to practice in 3 weeks. I mean, now we've got Milton, the transfer from Michigan that's coming in, supposed to be good also. But I guess early in the race, I would have to hedge my bet with Harrison Bailey. I was going to ask your opinion. We've got, like you guys, a completely new coaching staff, offensive philosophy. From my perspective, I think Tennessee is going to be fun to watch. We're going to flip it all over the field with Heupel coming in, and our receivers are stout. I mean, your own local kid, Jalen Hyatt, is turned into a quite nice little receiver. But what's your opinion?
Well, especially about the quarterback position, Patrick and we were just talking about this in the video stream right before the break. You're all in on the Virginia Tech transfer and Hendon Hooker, right?
That's
I know you're not.
I've just been hearing that
I've been hearing that he's been getting the most reps and kind of looked the best. I thought Joe Milton was awful at Michigan. He played really well, I think, in his first game, and maybe went over 300 yards, and people started talking like, this is the storyline. This is the first quarterback Jim Harbaugh's had that he actually recruited, and this is going to be the guy, and then he stunk it up for the rest of the year. Harrison Bailey's never been terribly impressive, and I was not high on
Hendon Hooker at Virginia Tech, but he can do some things. He can extend the play. He's got a pretty strong arm, so I would think that he is the guy. He's got the most experience and, as I guess, played at the highest level. That would be my guess.
Al, appreciate the phone call. Thanks for checking us out. And there certainly are a lot of parallels between what's going on in Knoxville right now and what's going on in Columbia. The main difference is that
I think from the Gamecock standpoint, Tennessee gets a little bit more national respect. They just edged out the Gamecocks, I guess, in the SEC media preseason polls over there at the SEC Media Days to get that fifth spot in the SEC East. And the Gamecocks predicted to finish sixth. And I think there is a chip on the shoulder of Carolina fans for sure who have been better in the rivalry with Tennessee lately in the last decade or so. But Shane Beamer hasn't been a head coach, so that there is much more of an unknown for him as opposed to Al, who I think rightly so is optimistic that Tennessee's going to be able to put up points with a guy like Josh Heupel and his offensive acumen that he's proven in his coaching tenure, Patrick.
There are a few pieces of that offense that I think Tennessee fans would be fairly excited about. I mean, Velus Jones has played well. Austin Pope, their tight end, is a 4 or 5 year player. He's a pretty decent player. But, I mean, their biggest issue is that they had 2 really good running backs last year, and now both of them are apparently going to be starting. I know that Oklahoma's been really high on what they've seen from Eric Gray early on. He can do a lot out of the backfield, catching the football and as a runner, of course. Guy that South Carolina really felt like they had a good shot at when he was coming out of high school in Memphis. And then Ty Chandler, I've heard everyone at UNC has been raving about Ty Chandler. Mac Brown loves the kid, so I think it's going to be tough for Tennessee fans to watch Oklahoma and UNC this year and watch those guys tearing it up. So I don't know what they're going to have at the running back spot, but they have a pretty decent little set of skill players, and Jalen Hyatt can absolutely move, so he's going to be a deep threat. They're going to be throwing it downfield to him a lot. I don't know much about their secondary. I know they brought Alontae Taylor to media days, and he's played a lot of football for them. I think that's the one that basically knocked Shi Smith out of the game by just getting in his head so much, jawing back and forth all day long. So there are a little bit of parallels, but I mean, South Carolina is going to be able to rest on that running game. They're going to be able to feel confident. They're definitely returning a lot more on the offensive line. I think Wanya Morris was the big tackle for Tennessee. He transferred to I can't remember where, but yeah, that's the one key difference. I think they've got a little bit more experience in terms of the pass catchers, but the running game for South Carolina should be a lot better.
Also, just the environment. I think, 37 transfers or something ridiculous way up there for Tennessee. The NCAA investigation kind of looming over their heads at the end of the Jeremy Pruitt era, as opposed to the welcome with open arms Shane Beamer and the atmosphere and the culture that they're trying to create there. Josh Heupel didn't come in, I don't think, as controversially as his predecessors in Jeremy Pruitt especially. And you can go down the line, a couple of coaches, I think, with Tennessee. But I don't think you can say, I think I would admit, not necessarily universally beloved hire and seen as a complete slam dunk. Now, Shane Beamer, not universally beloved either amongst the Gamecock fan base at the time, but I think the reaction from especially former players and how he's been embraced and the positivity that he has exuded since he's been here just creates a little different environment for, especially from the Will Muschamp era. How Josh Heupel's able to do that, I think, will largely hinge on how successful that offense is, especially coming in as an offensive guy. And will be very interesting to see how these defenses play out. It is kind of ironic that Tennessee did lose a Columbia native in their secondary as well, Bryce Thompson, foregoing his senior year, didn't get drafted. We'll try to catch on in the NFL, but it was J.C. Horn, the exact kind of opposite NFL draft success, going as the first defensive player taken. We mentioned that scene yesterday at Carolina Panthers training camp where it was fellow former Gamecock JT Ebay getting kicked out of camp with a vicious hit on Keith Kirkwood that sent him to the hospital and gave him a concussion, and then Ebay cut nearly immediately right after that. So the quarterback position, number one, a main concern on Patrick's board from a Gamecock football perspective. Hear exactly why. We'll break that down. And then the other ones, wide receiver at 2, safety at 3, corner at 4, linebacker at 5 is the whiteboard list this morning. Love to hear your opinions at 803-404-6100. You can call or text. It's the early game here on 107. what does that mean? That always irks me, T-Ray.
Started a whole season.
People say that about Ryan Helinski at South Carolina. What do you mean given a true chance? What's a true chance, man? You get on the field, you got a chance. That's how I see it. That to me is an excuse. Yeah, no doubt, Craig. That's on my list of the top 5 offensive line. I feel like we hear it every single year around here, how it's going to be a position of strength, and then we watch the games and we're like, I thought that offensive line was going to be one of the best in the SEC. It's not.
I think you don't see offensive line dominate week in and week out anymore. Like,
D-Ray, the playbook is what you earned as a quarterback. Stop with the excuses.
yeah, I don't. I don't know what that means.
Right. Ryan Helinski, is that who you're saying? California?
What is he saying?
Oh, he's talking about Brandon McElwain?
They're not even remotely the same player. Joe Milton's 250 pounds.
I was
He's
watching a
got a
little bit
super
of
strong arm. Give him that.
Sorry, Jim, what are you saying?
No, I was watching a little bit of this. That the gal who got injured, that Katarina Johnson Thompson from Britain, and how she had Achilles surgery in December.
Ooh,
And
December.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, and she was doubtful, but that was pretty impressive. She's like, no, I'll cross the finish line. You know, watch her hobble across. That was crazy.
She did jog it out through the end.
Ugh.
So was she expected to be one of the favorites to medal?
I don't know that
if
she
they did or
didn't
not.
look like she was, because they weren't even sure she'd be there.
And how many of the heptathlon events could you name?
Exactly.
Heptathlon?
Yep.
Heptathlon.
First of all, I don't even know how many events. Is that 8 events? Is that right?
No, that would be octathlon.
Hept.
7.
7?
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense to me.
6 would be hextathlon. 7 is heptathlon. Octathlon.
So to me, I do the decathlon and then take some out, right? I'm guessing no shot put, no discus, and
there is shot put.
There is? Oh, that I got no clue.
Heptathlon is the women's event and decathlon is the men's event, I think.
Right.
They say it's very demanding on the lower body.
I can see that.
So I think I saw them warming up the hurdles. So I got to say you got the hurdles, and I assume like the 100-meter sprint, right?
The 100-meter. So we got the 100-meter hurdles, the 200-meter, the 800-meter, high jump, long jump, and then shot put javelin.
Okay, nice. And then what else is involved in the decathlon? That's not in there. I think they do the 1600, right?
What events make up?
Always the last one. And they just do the 100-meter sprint, I saw.
Yeah.
They must do like the 110-meter hurdles, is that right?
The 110-meter hurdles, and they do the discus and the pole vault as well.
Pole vault and discus, nice.
And their run is 1,500 meters rather than 800.
1,600. And so I think there's one more extra event that they might have in there that the women don't. But I heard pole vault and discus are 2 that the women don't have, right? And what else?
That's what else would it be? The broad jump?
Yeah.
That might be it.
100-meter hurdles, high jump, shot put, 200-meter, then running long jump, javelin throw, and 800-meter. All right, we'll come back in. All right, guys are up.
T-Ray, I think I'm taking this out on you, but this last comment on the Facebook live stream, just saying a quarterback is only as good as players around them. I feel like I've been saying this maybe the entire last couple of decades for Gamecock football, and I've come to the conclusion that no, it's not just that. There's a reason why Gamecock quarterbacks haven't been drafted. There's a reason why that run since Todd Ellis is the last Gamecock quarterback drafted. It's not because of the players around them. It's because of the quarterback. You got to have better play at quarterback for South Carolina. I agree with you, Patrick. It's the number one position of concern because of how important it is and because of where Luke Doty is in his career. I think we went through it, right? How many different freshman quarterbacks have started for Carolina recently? And it's basically been every season in the last handful of seasons. Every single season you've seen Luke Doty as a true freshman last year have to start. Before him, Ryan Helinski, true freshman, had to start. Before him, Brandon McElwain, actually Jake Bentley, had to take over for another true freshman and Brandon McElwain. And I think there is certainly something to that trend. And guys have to get on the football field before they're ready. Dan Mullen has stated it multiple times. It's not fair to those guys to put a guy on the football field before he's ready. And I think that's why you're seeing such preseason expectations this year for his quarterback, Emory Jones, who's been on the field in very limited capacity, being put in positions to succeed, as opposed to the opposite of what Carolina football quarterbacks have been put in. They've been put in positions to only fail. I had to go to Lorenzo Nunez actually before Brandon McElwain as well to keep this thing going. I mean, it's been since Dylan Thompson has been the starter for Gamecock football. I mean, Connor Mitch, I guess, had the chance to be a guy to develop, never did. Harry Orth was a walk-on who tried to get in there and do what he could, but limited. And then since then, it has been talented quarterbacks being put on the field and just not developing at the quarterback position for Gamecock football. Luke Doty, unfortunately, was put in that position again last year. Will he be able to overcome it and buck this trend, Patrick? I think is the question all Gamecock fans are asking themselves.
Yeah, and that's the importance of the position is the only reason that it went number one in position of most concern for me. The quarterback, high-level quarterback play can make up for so much, and honestly, the way he's used is as interesting to me as anything at this point because he hasn't proved to anyone in the SEC that he can put the ball anywhere on the field. At the beginning, they might not respect him. They're probably going to pack the box and stop that running game. I'm very curious how much he'll be used in the quarterback running game because he is a much better athlete than South Carolina's had at that position, probably since Brandon McElwain. Will he be able to take the hits? Will he be able to make guys miss? How is he able to utilize his legs? I think is going to go a long way into the overall productivity of this offense.
Will he get any help? T-Ray's point about a quarterback is only as good as other players, there's something to it, right? You got to have wide receivers who can make plays for you. And we saw it last year. Luke Doty Colin Hill as well would put throws on the money. Guys wouldn't make catches.
Yeah.
All talking football is fun. We'll continue to do it. Hour number 3 coming up next here on the early game.
Yeah. Also,
just
to the point of the quarterback only good as the players around him. That's just not the excuse for Joe Milton at all either. I mean, Nico Collins, the Texans traded up to go get him. He was a very good wide receiver. Chris Evans, their running back, is going to get lots of carries for the Bengals this year. Ronnie Bell is going to get drafted this year. Their tight end, Nick Eubanks, is in the NFL. Their fullback, Ben Mason, was drafted. Like, Michigan was not lacking in the talent department. They never have been. That's never been their issue. I agree with that last comment, though. Sure.
Oh, no doubt. Yep, with Jacob. I wouldn't put wide receivers number 2. I go to secondary number 2. So if I had to write mine down, and I would put them DBs as 1. So quarterback number 1. Write this list down. Put that pencil it in there. Fantastic. I'm with you on number 1.
Is this where the United States is just going to completely run away with the medal count because we're so good at track and field? Is this how it always works? Never really keep
Typically,
track.
I think. And there's so many different events.
Right. We seem to be medaling in almost every track and field event so far.
Trey is basically saying, get out of the way, Patrick. Let me see your whiteboard, man. So quarterback, DB.
But if it was positions that I actually am concerned about, it would just be quarterback, DB, wide receiver.
How can you be confident in the other positions is my question, sir. That's
Not
20.
not. They're not gonna make or break our season.
So I go QB 1, DB 2, wide receiver 3, linebacker 4, offensive line 5.
I don't know if that made it better or worse. Oh, I can't see Patrick. That's what he meant. He can't see me.
I see.
Oh, okay. Wow.
If you would have said I can only see Patrick's head and forearms, then I'm with you. I love a good camouflage joke as much as the next guy.
There you go.
The tone and the live chat's tough. Tough for me to figure out.
You see John Cena's back?
I think I heard that somewhere. Back wrestling, is that the deal?
Yeah. It was a
Flair's
sweet-
out.
Who?
Ric Flair. That was the news that came across yesterday. WWE and Ric Flair are no more.
What were they doing before?
I don't know.
The only thing I've seen of wrestling in the last, I don't know, year was the video of John Cena, the pop that he got when he came out to Roman Reigns.
Never seen it.
He's been out of the wrestling game for a while.
He's been dominating acting, right?
Yeah, and Roman Reigns is apparently the greatest wrestler of all time, just taking down legend after legend after legend. That's what I hear. He's a specimen now, Roman Reigns. Played football at Georgia Tech, I believe.
Now I'm watching this limp on the track, the hop. From Katrina Johnson Thompson. Huh? So Jen, you read that she had Achilles surgery in December and was really trying to be in the Olympics in August? That's crazy. Well, you got that, T-Ray. You also got recruiting. I think recruiting is the college football version of your own man soap opera.
No judgment for me for anyone that's a wrestling fan, though. I totally see the allure of it. I've just never got into it as a kid, so I can't just get into it now as an adult.
You are only judged if you are not admitting that it's not completely scripted and trying to maximize the drama.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like if you're, it's no different than being a huge reality TV fan and pretending like that's real life.
Well, I mean, sports in general, right? It's here for our entertainment value.
And there's a skill to it. I mean, to be a wrestling champion, you have to have charisma. People have to like you.
Sure.
So it's not like it's not just nothing. And it's undoubtedly impressive what they do in the ring. And they do it on a nightly basis. The grind of WWE is something that I don't think I ever respected till now.
Did you see that? You saw the movie The Wrestler, right?
Unbelievable movie.
Yeah, really good.
I didn't realize that Mickey Rourke. I ended up going down a rabbit hole of Mickey Rourke and how he was early on like one of the Hollywood heartthrobs, and everyone loved him. And he was awesome, and then just drugs and everything got to him, and he just went down an awful path for a long period of time. But he looks awful now, and he was a good-looking kid in the 80s.
Jen, thank you for diverting the earlier call. Much appreciated.
That would help.
But that does make me feel like we're getting back to normal.
Right? All right. So you said 2 breaks.
Just 2 breaks, Gap.
Yep.
And I
And
got
the lives are all you. All Tim, all the time. Wow. Guys are up.
We'll have that tomfoolery, shenanigans, ballyhoo back tomorrow with Bill Gunter. His third 3 days off in a row today. Patrick Perret doing a fine job of filling those metaphorically large shoes.
Yeah, probably not realistically large shoes, but
Well, that would be weird, right? If you're not necessarily a large person, but you have large feet, that'd be disproportionate. Nobody wants that. 803-404-6100 if you would like to join the program. Jen Jensen producing from the Herndon Chevrolet Studios. Patrick Perret, Tim Hill with you. The headlines this morning: Team USA women's basketball 53 in a row now after dominating Australia. Asia Wilson, the former Gamecock, with just 10 points in that ball game, but Brianna Stewart had 20, I think, in the first half, and that was a laugher. And now it's on to the semis for Team USA, and looking like that they're hitting their stride exactly when they want to be. I think that's by far the best performance for the heavily favored Team USA women, led by Dawn Staley. The Carolina Panthers parting ways in kind of dramatic fashion with former Gamecock defensive back JT eBay after a hit yesterday that landed Keith Kirkpatrick, I believe, in the hospital.
Kirkwood. Right.
Kirkwood. I knew that was wrong. My bad. Thanks for that's why Patrick is here. Completely keep me on the rails. Keith Kirkwood was out, I think, basically missed all of last season with an injury, and then early on in practice yesterday, training camp, JT eBay hit him and got kicked out of practice and then immediately cut after the practice. A guy who was trying to walk on as a free agent and came to Carolina as a Rice graduate transfer, I think, and now will have to try to catch on and continue his football career somewhere else. And it goes to the very difficult balance of being aggressive, trying to make a team, trying to make a name for yourself, and being a good defensive player, and then also you can't hurt your teammates. And Matt Rule was very frustrated, disappointed, and just plain angry after that thing went down yesterday, and acted accordingly. Again, our latest reminder what a business the NFL is, and especially in training camp, especially if you're on the opposite end of the spectrum of J.C. Horn, where tons invested in Horn from the Carolina Panthers standpoint, drafted him number 8 overall, first defensive player drafted, and JT Ebe had to do everything to convince the Panthers to keep him, everything perfectly, and did the exact opposite. And now they will move on. Both parties move on in separate directions there. Our conversation, while we mentioned the Big 12 and the Pac-12 commissioners meeting in the possible merger or what options might be on the table, I think from the college football standpoint, most of us, Gamecock Larry probably verbalized it best in hour number 1, where he's all fired up and said, I don't want to hear about this stuff anymore. We have talked Oklahoma and Texas and expansion and hypothetical conference, super conference stuff a bunch in the last week or so. Now is a great time to talk about what's going to happen on the field, especially with NFL exhibition game kicking off tomorrow night. Gamecock practice kicking off on Friday. We have gotten into a discussion this morning about areas of concern, positions of concern from the Gamecock football standpoint specifically. A lot of this is coming from the J.C. Horn and Israel Mukuamu cornerbacks having moved on to the NFL. And the defensive secondary, I thought, was going to be number 1 on the list. The central headline today is Beamer and Gray, defensive back coach Torian Gray, pleased with defensive back depth entering camp. And this was largely done in the transfer portal, with 3 guys coming in having serious college football experience, kind of led by the Kansas freshman All-American and Karan Prunty. Also Tyrese Ross coming in as a starter from Washington State. Carlins Platel coming in from Division II Assumption College. We'll see what those guys can add. Now, this is about depth again, right? So very clearly, defensive back still as a group, number 2 on my list of top 5 positions of concern for Gamecock football. Patrick has split them up into individual positions as safeties and corners, and you have safeties number 3 right now, corners number 4. And your reaction to that was what exactly?
No particular reason for that. The secondary should be as a whole, but I was trying to come up with 5 overall. And I don't know, with the 4-2-5, there's going to be a lot of like positions that are kind of ambiguous. And honestly, between linebacker and defensive backfield, there might be, because somebody asked, is there any chance that if we don't have the personnel, will they not put 5 defensive backs out on the field at all times? And maybe that means if RJ Roderick, who's perfect position, might actually just be an undersized linebacker, and Jamar Brown, who came in as a linebacker but has played a little bit of safety and is kind of going to be that star position. Like maybe you have a couple guys like that out there on the field with Debo Williams or Sherrod Green, guys that can move sideline to sideline. Maybe it's not exactly 5 defensive backs, but you're still going to kind of play that 4-2-5 base defense. The positions are kind of left vague in certain situations.
Billy, Cool Care Heating and Air text line 803-6100. My top concern is the wide receivers. Number 1, number 2 would be the defensive backs with the safeties, especially. It says, I know we're pretty stable at running back, so that's why there's no worry there. Thank you, Billy. To me, yeah, running backs would be number 1 if you're going positions of strength. Number 2 would be tight ends. After that, maybe defensive line.
Yeah.
But that's why I think you can have a certain level of concern with near every position, I think, outside of the running backs and tight ends. When it comes to Gamecock football, it just depends how you want to look at this thing. But let's get back to number 1 there, quarterback. What will Luke Doty need to do, especially early on, knowing how the Gamecock schedule plays out, right? I think I would argue there's not much he can do at all in the Eastern Illinois game to make everyone feel that much better moving forward, because it's going to be a team struggle to even win a game in spring football with a really soft schedule last year, and knowing what Eastern Illinois did. I think Gamecock fans could feel better with a win on the road in week number 2 if Luke Doty shows accuracy and the ability to get the ball down the field, to make the big play and not – I feel like that has been a tradition now where a Gamecock wide receiver would get open for a shot or two and the connection wouldn't be made. And that seemed to have, especially with – this is another thing this Gamecock offense can do as well, not feel like it's completely deflated when that happens. And I think that was part of Will Muschamp's whatever else he brought to the team, that spirit, right? I think that was part of who he was, that he was going to pout when that happened, or his team was going to pout to some degree and just show it's that slump shoulders kind of mentality, right? When you have a shot and you build to that shot and you miss it, as opposed to other teams that we see all the time, Patrick, where you're going to take multiple shots. And hey, you miss one, who cares? You're going to hit another one. And if you miss that one, guess what? You're going to try again. And Marcus Satterfield seems to have that kind of mentality, that kind of swagger to him. Now, whether his team and his unit can kind of take it on and then back it up, which is the big thing, I think that's what's going to be a main focus. I think that's what Carolina could prove to me through 2 games, especially at that quarterback position.
Well, yeah, I think Satterfield will have that mentality, but in terms of the margin of error, I don't think there's going to be much with those deep shots when you just look at how this offense is going to be constructed. I mean, it's going to be run the ball, throw to the tight end. The large majority of the passes are going to be to the short to intermediate levels where you're just dinking and dunking for the most part, using Jaheim Bell, using Nick Muse, using both your running backs and trying to just move the ball methodically. And when you can catch the defense sleeping every once in a while, that's when you have the opportunity to take your shots. Maybe it's only 3 or 4 times a game where you get a guy open deep and you've just got to make those connections. You're not going to be 2019 LSU throwing 50 passes a game, throwing it downfield on every play. And if you have 3rd and 15, who cares? We've got Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. It doesn't matter. We'll make a play. We'll make something happen. You're not going to have those opportunities unless somebody steps up that we're just not seeing coming. Or if Jaheim Bell just becomes a deep threat rather than the traditional tight end kind of catching things underneath and trying to make a couple yards happen after the catch. But as far as slumping your shoulders and letting it kind of defeat you, it did feel like every time a pass was dropped deep, it was a complete wasted opportunity, and you felt like we might have just dropped the game right there. Like that could be it. All our momentum is gone. You can't have that from a mentality standpoint, but it doesn't make those plays any less important because I don't think the opportunities are going to be there from a drive-to-drive basis.
Yeah, Craig hits us up on a Facebook live stream and says, he said they aren't dinking and dunking, Patrick. Yeah. We will see. I think he's talking
No
about
coach will ever come into the season.
Right.
Yeah, no coach will ever come into the season and say it's going to be a dink and dunk offense.
Especially when Sterling Sharp asked your question, what's going to be your offensive identity, coach? Yeah. So, let me help you. Like, we're going to dink and dunk.
Yeah. We're going to drop it off to the tight ends. Those explosive running backs. Hopefully they can make somebody miss.
Those explosive plays, that's the fad in college football. We're not into that. That's not going to be us. How about 3 yards in a cloud of dust? That sound good? Yeah. And that's why the conversation this time of year can be disingenuous. As the headline reads on Gamecock Central this morning, kind of got me thinking about this conversation, that Shane Beamer and Torian Gray feel pleased with their defensive back depth entering camp. It reminds me, I remember the headline, and Bill brings it up, I think very appropriately pretty often on this show, about Lorenzo Ward, the defensive coordinator at the time for Carolina in 2014, going into that season, coming off the Jadeveon Clowney era. And his line was, I think the defense is going to be better. And clearly, it took about 5 minutes of Texas A&M and Kenny Hill just running up and down all over the field, whatever they wanted to do in that season opener, to show that, that wasn't going to happen. And that was just the ultimate definition of coach speak and trying to maybe speak it into existence. And it absolutely did not happen at that point. So that's why defensive back to me is a very close second right now to quarterback in position of concern, because you can't hide a bad secondary, especially in major college football these days. And I think Gamecock football has been the best example of that, maybe in the SEC at large. in the last couple of years. And outside of the Auburn game last year and what Israel Mukwama was able to do against Georgia 2 years ago, I feel like consistently the defensive backfield has been the area of weakness, the most glaring area of weakness. Now, quarterback play hadn't been great. Nobody's going to argue that. But I think if you had to choose what let the team down more, it would be the defensive backfield. And what these transfers can do coming in immediately, what a guy like Cam Smith, who is a very talented guy, highly recruited guy, but hasn't performed in a Carolina uniform through 2 years, what he can do this year, I think is going to go a long way, Patrick, to determining how competitive. Let's start there. How competitive South Carolina can be. I feel like they got to be able to compete with teams before you can talk about winning games. And that's the mindset that I have from what I've seen coming into this season for that secondary.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, the over-under on this team is 3.5 wins. I think if we had to put kind of a 3-game variance on it, I would say most people would expect South Carolina to end at between 4 and 7 wins. I think most people feel good about winning those 3 out-of-conference games, and then
most Gamecock fans,
of course, most Gamecock fans. But that could be a 4-win season. Could mean you beat your 3 out-of-conference games and you beat Vanderbilt, and then just get the doors blown off by Florida, Georgia, Clemson. You're not competitive, and you lose to Tennessee. They kind of take care of you. Like, there's a lot of ways that could happen, but if you're competitive in every game, you can feel there is a way to feel good about a 5-win season with a young team and a new coaching staff. But you can't go into you can't lose to Georgia by 35 points. You can't lose to Tennessee by 10 to 14 points. You can't have Kentucky running all over you and things like that. You can't let Texas A&M run for 300 yards and just dominate you. That is going to be where it starts. Like, not all 5-win seasons are built the same. Not all 6-win seasons are built the same. It's not just going to be about wins and losses, but it could be a very ugly 4-8.
Jason says, just need to go 6-6. Reminds me of year number 1 under Will Muschamp. I feel like this program in a very similar position. And that was the second best coaching job that the Will Muschamp coaching staff did. Year number 1. Changing, making adjustments, putting Jake Bentley in there midseason, finishing 4-2, getting positive momentum back into the program, and then building on that the next year. And then obviously we know what happened from there. It didn't go well from there. I think 6-6, most rational Gamecock fans would agree would be a step in the right direction for Shane Beamer, a solid foundation to start with, for sure. Bunch of you weighing in on the Cool Care Heating and Air text line. Scott says, got to air it out week 1 and see what he's got from a Luke Doty standpoint. And I guess that's kind of my mindset right now. You know, we talked about the Colts' weirdness of the last couple of days with Carson Wentz and then Quentin Nelson, the offensive lineman, both going out with these weird foot injuries that have just popped up at the same time. And now they're both out 5 to 12 weeks. And I mentioned you can't win the Super Bowl in August, but you can kind of take yourself out of contention. You can definitely hurt yourself. And to me, maybe that's what that first game is for Luke Doty. He's not going to prove to many people, I don't think, that he's going to be an SEC legit quarterback or improve on that, PFF preseason ranking of 125 out of 130 as far as quarterbacks in Division I football. Doing that against Eastern Illinois, having success there isn't going to prove that you're moving way up. But if you don't have success, I think you can prove, or you can put a really low ceiling on yourself real quick. So not a ton to gain there, but I think there is something to lose when you're talking about that first game, the opener. More comments on the text line. Anonymous texter says Shane Beamer and company will be evaluated by offensive development, specifically quarterback, I think, because Will Muschamp just could not do it. And I agree. I think maybe more so than Shane Beamer, I think Marcus Satterfield is going to be evaluated by that and going to make his reputation on that if it goes well. Ray hits us up with his top 5 positions of concern, and they are a little bit different than us. A little bit more specific in some areas and less specific in other ones. He goes with number 1 at quarterback and then adds, we just haven't had good play over the years, moments here and there, but not consistent. Number 2, wide receiver, catch the ball. Number 3, defensive backs, new guys have to step up. Number 4, he goes with pass blocking. Got to give the quarterback time to progress the play. And number 5, coaching. Everything's been positive leading up to the season, but play calling will be telling. I think that's an excellent list. Never thought to add coaching to my list of positions of concern, but I totally understand where Ray's coming from. Love to hear your thoughts as well at 803-404-6100. We'll continue the discussion as we roll on here in hour number 3 and get into some other news and notes for sure as we try to keep you updated on the latest at the Olympics. Get the conversation or your takeaway, Patrick, about the options maybe the Big 12 has now meeting with the Pac-12 commissioner and where they might go, especially as it pertains to a possible merger of a super conference. You're listening to the early game here. It's 107.5. Positions of concern. A position of concern for me right now is sitting on a folding chair. Position of strength, sitting in a recliner. I suggest you head out to Daniel's Fine Furniture and Bedding out near the airport, toward the back there. When you walk in, Daniel's, you will feel that this is a different type of furniture store. This isn't just some sort of big box store where you're a nameless, faceless customer, maybe just another number. Now, Daniel Clark and June Clark, they've been running Daniel's Fine Furniture and Bedding here in the Midlands for 25 years. Excuse me, not 50, 25 years. They want you to be part of their family, and they're going to treat you like family. When you walk in there, go sit wherever you want to sit. Go test it out. You can go lay on one of the beds for a little while. You are there to experience their furniture, and they know that, hey, if you like what you see and feel, then you can just buy it right off the floor. Very simple there. And they specialize in that motion furniture I'm talking about, like recliners, reclining sofas. The leather gallery at Daniel's is the pride and joy there. They got the hardwood floor. The feel of just sitting in one of their recliners is something that stuck with me when I was in the store just a few weeks ago. I know it will stick with you, and I know you can find that recliner that you need in your house. It's kind of a thing at my house for sure. I've had mine since college, and I'm ready to, I think, finally move on and get that next one. And I'll do it at Daniel's Fine Furniture and Bedding because I know they're known for the 3 Bs: best furniture, best service, and best price. 3911 Edmond Highway, West Columbia, at the back of the airport. Highway 302 and Dunbar Road is where you can find them. Remember, when it's time to save, it's time for Daniel's Fine Furniture and Bedding.
I almost feel like the hammer throw is lucky.
Why?
Just knowing when to let go. And I was going to say these guys make it look easy, but they really don't because a lot of them throw it right into the netting. These are the most intimidating looking Olympians, I believe, though. These guys are stout.
Do you think the guys who who do the hammer throw, could they be a pitcher? Or is it a totally different
No.
thought of like a release point and all that kind of stuff?
They all look like offensive linemen. This guy's got like borderline chicken legs, but he's tatted head to toe, and his upper half is just monstrous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
His
think
chest, biceps are enormous.
javelin throwers are the guys with the arms that translate to baseball.
Okay.
Or football, like Patrick Ramsey, my first favorite football player.
Oh, Trey disagrees with you. Beautiful form. Heel toe, heel toe.
Yeah, but so many of them miss. The American guy threw it into the net.
Yeah, Cullen, I hear you on that one, man. Oh my gosh. Poor Drew. Read Drew's text in here. Poor is something.
I did see. I didn't want to laugh, but Jason Brown on his Twitter, I think PFF or one of those websites put up the top transfer quarterbacks. It was like the top 5 transfer quarterbacks, and he retweeted it with an emoji like the sleeping emoji.
I think it was 10. Top 10.
Yeah. Like, they're sleeping on him. Like, really?
Right.
They don't even have data on you. Like,
It'd be a great story. Don't get me wrong.
it would. It almost made me think, like, does he actually have it? Does he know something that we don't? Does he think that he has a chance of winning the starting job? Because
Oh, he definitely thinks that. If you don't think that, then don't come to the school.
I don't know. A lot of guys are just happy to be here.
No. They might say it publicly. If you're that guy, you don't need to be in the program. Get out.
I mean, the 4th guy on the depth chart, whatever his name is, you think he thinks he's got a chance of starting?
Yes.
No way.
He's like T-Ray earlier, man. They just haven't opened up the playbook for him. Nice work on the. So are all these spots going to be recorded, Jen? The dark.
As far as I know, right now they're trying to figure it out, and it was supposed to be like 30s or 60s. So we'll see.
Anything I can do to help you with it? Or are you good?
No, I'm good. It's just a matter of them working with the national to figure out what it is. So Chris and Tammy are working on all that. I recorded a 60. He cut it to a 30, so we've got both options.
Gotcha. Yeah, hope exactly. That's my point. And Trey, I don't think anybody does it. Everybody's got a chance. I mean, that's one of the reasons why you come to Carolina. There are only 2 scholarship quarterbacks when Brown transferred, right? Or just really one, and then an incoming freshman.
We're coming back in.
That's a good point, DC.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the best programs in college football and who's playing quarterback at those schools.
Yeah. Yes, right.
Hey, love to see you guys out at Charwood Golf Club, August 27th. That's a Friday, 8 days before the start of Gamecock football on September 1st against Eastern Illinois. 10 o'clock, August 27th. We'll tee it up, the 14th anniversary celebration of 107.5 The Game. Panera Breakfast, Little Pig's Lunch, raising money for Camp Cole, giving away a trip to Kiowa for the winning team, raffling off a pair of tickets for that Gamecock football home opener. Just give Charwood a call to register at 803-755-2000. That 14th anniversary golf tournament, sponsored by Integrated Media. And again, it's always a good time. I'd love to see you out there. Hope you can participate and join in on the fun. 803-404-6100 is how you can join in on the conversation this morning here on the show. You can call us. You can text us on the Cool Care Heating and Air text line. Drew just hit us up with his top 5 areas or positions of concern, I should say, for Gamecock football. And Drew goes, 1, receiver number 1, defensive line number 2, linebacker 3, quarterback 4, and cornerback number 5. So let's let him explain before we dig into that. So he says, number 1, wide receivers need the next Deebo Samuel, Brian Edwards, Shi Smith to emerge by game number 3. Patrick, do you think there is one of those guys on this roster? I do not see it. You?
I would be surprised if that was the case.
All 3 of those guys came in pretty highly recruited. And I just don't think there's a guy on the roster right now that has the pedigree that those guys had in high school and then has shown any sort of explosiveness to become that guy. I guess maybe you would argue Omarion Brown, the Georgia Tech transfer who broke Calvin Johnson's touchdown record as a freshman, but his struggles last year don't seem to be trending his career in that direction. Maybe it was an anomaly. Maybe he can be that guy. But I am certainly with Drew that Carolina needs that next top line, top level guy, and Brian Edwards continues to get big time talk in the NFL. John Gruden really excited, said that he looks like Terrell Owens this year, I think. But I just haven't seen him, is where I'm going with that.
Who is the best chance?
I don't know. That's my point. You got a leading candidate? That's why I mentioned Brown as the only one that popped in my mind.
Yeah, I think the best chance, you're not going to get a Shi, Deebo, or Brian. I think the best chance might be Dakereon Joyner, and I'm thinking of him as kind of what Kadarius Toney for Florida came out in a big way. Kadarius Toney was a high school quarterback, came to Florida as a quarterback, and was still figuring out the wide receiver position. And last year still wasn't even a good route runner, but when he got the ball in his hands, was just so dynamic, just so quick, and obviously maybe the most memorable play of the Muschamp era. The lasting image will be 5 Gamecocks trying to tackle him. So maybe Dakereon, just they find a way to get him the ball in space and he can make things happen. But no matter what, I think it's going to be a reach to say that they will be. Although this time last year, we did not expect Shi to be as dominant as he was. So
no doubt about it. And I was the first. I was leading that line of guys saying that, I just don't see it, him becoming that number 1 guy. And he absolutely did. And give him all the credit in the world for that, for sure. So happy to be proven wrong when it comes to Gamecock wide receivers. But right now, it's just my honest evaluation of those guys. Number 2, and then the question popped up from RL on the YouTube live stream. Why defensive line? And Drew explains on that Cool Care Heating and Air text line. Arguably the second strongest group on the team. Why I'm concerned the expectations are too high. Want to see pressure from more than JJ Enagbare. Okay, that's kind of counterintuitive, but I guess that's a little over-analysis from my
explanation helps a little bit. I mean, if you're going to say that going into every game, South Carolina is just going to dominate the trenches and you build it up a little bit too much, that if one team gashes you a couple times or has a little bit of time to throw, then you're going to just be disappointed, even if the defensive line didn't play bad. I mean, I guess I can see where he's going, but it is probably the second strongest group on the team. Running backs, tight ends, and defensive line is where you feel confident.
Third, linebackers from Drew. Best teams Carolina's had through the years, he says, plus linebackers and or safeties. Need a high IQ guy like Sky Moore to help get the whole defense together. Okay, I don't necessarily disagree with the explanation, but I think the counterpoint to that is you had that guy in Ernest Jones. Certainly the LA Rams think they had that guy last year, and the last couple of years, the defense hasn't been good. So to me, you need more than one guy. You need depth at linebacker. It's why I also have it right there, and I have it at number 4. My positions of concern. You need multiple guys making plays and being consistent just with their assignments, right? Not being a weakness to pick on or giving up big plays consistently, which what that linebacking core has been in the last few years, in my opinion. Patrick, what about you?
Yeah, I kind of like the linebacker room right now. I mean, Sherrod Greene should be the quarterback of that defense, I would guess. He's played a lot of football and maybe struggled early on, but he's played good ball the last couple of years, and just injuries have derailed him. So if he can stay healthy, I would feel good about what he can bring. Mo Cabo was a highly recruited kid. He was a really good athlete. Brad Johnson's played a lot of football as well. Granted, he was more of a pass rusher and kind of move to the stand-up linebacker spot. So how he continues to adjust to that could be a question. I would probably guess that the starting two would be Sherrod Greene and Brad Johnson at this point. And then Damani Staley has played some meaningful football for you as well. And who knows what Debo Williams will be able to bring right away. But, I mean, that's 5 guys right there that I feel like if they're on the field, it's not a nightmare situation for you. You feel like something can happen.
Monty Staley, by far the most returning tackles for anybody who played linebacker, who is back for Carolina this year. He had 51 last year's, third best on the team behind Ernest Jones and Jamie Robinson. So I keep forgetting to mention Jamie Robinson as another guy who's transferred out of the program and gives high concern for the defensive back position. As we were talking about wide receivers, we didn't mention Ortre Smith simply because he hasn't looked like the guy who did have a lot of promise and was a highly recruited guy coming into or as a freshman and performed. But since the knee injury popped up and knowing that it was a kind of a genetic thing, he just hasn't shown the same ability on the playing field. So DC brought that up on the YouTube live stream. Certainly a name that we should have mentioned in that wide receiver discussion. Okay, number 4 for Drew in his list of positions of concern for Gamecock football was quarterback. Hot take, Drew says, I believe Jason Brown has the arm and dynamic throwing ability for the SEC. Love Luke Doty, think he can win the job, but not shocked if Brown wins it by being a more explosive thrower. I'd say the odds are against that for the St. Francis transfer. I know he threw a couple of touchdowns to his fellow transfer from St. Francis and E.J. Jenkins in the spring game. I thought it was interesting to hear from Rocky Top Owl earlier, and his near entire opinion was based on the Tennessee spring game. I feel like that spring game just has the ability to do that. Trey's response to that Jason Brown hot take is no, just no. And that's kind of where I'm coming from here. I think it would be a long shot. Great story, but a long shot.
Yeah, I don't even know if he's guaranteed to be the backup, but
right.
We will see. But, I mean, you can put that into the overall concern for the quarterback position just because you're lucky if your quarterback is able to stay healthy and play every snap for the entire year, especially if Luke Doty is going to be used in the running game as much as I hope and think that he needs to be. Who knows how he'll be able to hold up. Hopefully he will. But worst case scenario, your backup quarterback is still a very important part of the team. But in terms of starting, no, I don't see how that is possible.
As opposed to Brown battling it out with Luke Doty for the starting position, it seems like it's going to be more of a battle for he and Colton Gothia, the true freshman from the state of Georgia, to get that backup spot behind Luke Doty. At least that's kind of how I read the quarterback competition coming out of the spring. Nothing here in the summer workouts has maybe changed my opinion from what I've heard from coaches or players about those offseason workouts. Number 5 for Drew, he goes with the cornerbacks as his position of concern for Gamecock football. Obvious concern, he says, but really pleased with the recruiting effort and specific guys they brought in. Need to stay healthy and confident on the back end. Interesting list from Drew, 1 through 5, positions of concern for Gamecock football. Let's get out to the Love Chevy phone lines and hear from Jason, where he has the greatest concerns right now for the Gamecocks.
Jason, go ahead. Welcome to the show. Morning, guys. It's quarterback.
107.5 The Game. What's your name?
As long as the Carolina, this has been the bane of our concern since eons. Quarterback.
Oh, okay. You're looking to do some advertising? Okay. The best number to call, because this is just the talk line, so we're not connected to the business office.
You gotta have a pony.
But
it can make plays.
I will give you
If you have one,
number to call.
it can make a huge difference in how you win games. And I'm just interested to see how we can develop Doty, because I saw him in high school at Myrtle Beach, and the kid has it. You know, he has the threat of running running with his feet. But here's the thing: we have studs at running back, so he doesn't have. I mean, you have the element of him running the ball, but right now, I just want to see with our offense coordinator Marcus Satterfield, who is somebody who I think he has something to prove. I think this whole coaching staff has something to prove, because they're not, recycled former SEC coaches. I think these guys are all coming in. They other than Torian Gray, but they all come in with that's something to prove, man. And I think if he can develop Doty in the passing game, I just want to see marked improvement.
Jason,
and just seeing the development.
Jason, what will that be for you, especially early on in the season for Luke Doty? How can he show you he is a much better quarterback than he showed in 2 games last season?
Just the progressions, if he can stay in the pocket. It's going to be times when you have a chance to run. I get that, but sometimes you may want to stay in just 1 or 2 seconds later for a receiver to come open. And if he can hit guys that they're not going to be wide open, but if he can hit them in a window and just showing improvement. I mean, I just need somebody that can stick the ball in there sometimes on a 3rd and 8. And make that completion, because that's where you get confidence. You're not going to get confidence by just, playing scared. I'm sorry. And I think Doty has something in him, man, that I think it'll be shown to fruition this year. I think he can get the job done. He's a guy that, I think he's just going to take time, and the coaches helping him out. That's going to be the biggest thing. The other thing is our coaches. We've got to develop these kids. I mean, like with Bentley, he threw him in there. He played well the last 5 or 6 games of his freshman year, and you're thinking, okay, he's going to get another year this spring, the next year, and this and that. And it's just like it was just stuck in mud for the next 2 years. It was decent, but it just wasn't taking the next level. And I'm just kind of a little, tempering expectations, but a little excited and seeing a different path in how we develop quarterbacks.
Jason, appreciate the phone call. I think there's much more reason to be optimistic about the possibility of that because of the lack of Will Muschamp track record, if that makes any sense. There's very, very little reason to believe that with Will Muschamp as your head coach, knowing that track record with quarterbacks. Now, I think the Marcus Satterfield track record is much more a question mark, right?
Anything else? And question mark is better than baggage from that standpoint. But I think you're going to need to see results really quickly with an Eastern Illinois team. Now, the question is, Scott said, you need to air it out there. And I hear where he's coming from, but that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. If you're the more physically dominating team and you got a really good running back core, that you can probably rely on that to move the football and go score a bunch of points. And the last thing you want to do is put stuff out there that doesn't need to be out there that you could use to beat much more talented teams, right? I think the really interesting part of this schedule for the Gamecocks, Patrick, is week number 2. Cullen hit us up a little bit earlier on the live stream. He said that ECU game, those folks up there have our game circled in a big way. It's not going to be a gimme up there, virtually sold out. Well, the atmosphere in Greenville, North Carolina is not going to be something that is going to intimidate. Certainly you would hope, not going to completely overwhelm an SEC program like South Carolina. But there's no doubt that East Carolina will be looking to make a statement and an immediate success in their season by the big upset. And it's the first time I think an SEC team's ever gone up there and the whole deal. That will be, I think, maybe a game that's a little bit more notable than Gamecock fans are thinking it might be, or it's not as easy as saying, hey, those 3 non-conference games, automatic wins is how you do the math for Carolina's schedule.
Yeah, and I agree that week 2 is going to be fascinating for how much you have to show. Like, if you're in this game in the 4th quarter, it's not going to be a great sign because you're probably going to have to reveal things that you were hoping to save for Georgia. You'd love for Eastern Illinois. In a perfect world for Gamecock fans against Eastern Illinois, you just run the ball down their throat, get up 21-0 early. You let Rashad Amos, you let Zaquandre White kind of carry the load for the rest of the game. Keep Kevin Harris on the bench. Hopefully Marshawn Lloyd barely even has to play. You get him a couple touches, but you kind of keep him secret as much as you can. And then East Carolina, who knows what that's going to be like. I couldn't pretend to tell you what East Carolina's team looks like this year, but I mean, they're not the same opponent as Eastern Illinois. They're a better program than that. So you would hope that the running game can just carry you to victory easily. Luke Doty has to throw the ball 12 times, and it's a breeze, and Jason Brown can come in and play the fourth quarter or something like that. But that is going to be a nice measuring stick right there if you're having to push the ball down the field and run trick plays or whatever you would have liked to keep under wraps. If Marshawn Lloyd has to play a ton and you're wearing your guys out, I'm fascinated by that. If you want to have any chance of hanging with Georgia, who I think is my national championship pick this year, they're stacked. You would like to be as healthy and with as many tricks up your sleeve as possible going into week 3. You don't want to show all your cards early.
Mike Houston, the coach at East Carolina, don't have to remind Gamecock fans has a history of already beating the Gamecocks when he did it as the head coach of the Citadel a few years ago. So, again, another reason not to take things lightly. And you don't assume a new coaching staff and a bunch of new players would do that to begin with, first road game and all of that. But I think definitely a note worth mentioning, and several of you already hitting us up with a baseball note. Andrew Eister expected now to return for Gamecock baseball. The news this morning. Hope just hit us on the YouTube live stream and got the text in on that Cool Care Heating and Air text line as well. Thanks for participating and helping out the program in that way. Craig says East Carolina usually very good offensively. The program has been down massively in the last 5 years or so, but I think back and had a pretty good year last year and has the program trending in the right direction. Go back to Jeff, I do for East Carolina, and having quarterbacks that could air it out for sure. I know they've had that more recently. Lincoln Riley was there for a couple of years as offensive coordinator, kind of started his coaching career, making his name for himself, putting up a bunch of offensive numbers. And Cullen wants to give us the heads up, the numbers there. The ESPN, however they do their formula, 68.4% chance that Carolina wins that.
Don't even want to hear it.
Chance that East Carolina would pull the upset. Not exactly a comfortable stat. That's
the ESPN FPI that had Mississippi State as like the 8th best team in the country in the preseason, and if you score a touchdown in the first quarter, they give you a 99% chance to win the game. And no, whatever's going on there with their computers, I don't like it at all.
Nice. It took us a while, but we got Patrick Grizzled. We'll see if we can turn it around to the dramatic conclusion of the show coming up next. Here it's the early game on 107.5 The Game. Timing is everything. Talking about a bunch of preseason discussion right now. That's the time of year we're in, right at the beginning of August. It's what we do here right now. From the timing perspective, you got to check out the housing market. I'm sure you already know how hot it is and has been. What you might not know is exactly what kind of buying power you have right now. Give Buford Lending and Benji Getzy and his team a call at 843-524-2404. I have been really impressed in my conversations with Benji and working with his team, how much they've been with me at every step of the way in this process. If you've ever been through the buying process or the mortgage process, you know it's not necessarily simple, and you need to have a lender who you can trust. You can trust that will get back to you in a timely manner and can find you the best deal. And that's what Benji and his team have proven to me. Their 25 years of experience in the business, giving them the confidence that they can find you the best deal no matter what you're looking for. A VA loan, USDA loan, conventional construction, renovation, whether you're looking to refinance or get your second home, Buford Lending has seen and done it all, and they want to do it for you. Benji Getzy and Buford Lending. Give them a call at 843-524-2404. You're on mute there, Patrick.
Oh, boy. Oh, man. My roommate's smoke detector is going off. It's very annoying.
Is that the battery? I think I heard it the other day briefly.
Well, mine was going off the other day, too, and I had to reach up with a lacrosse stick and press the button, but now I can hear it from 2 doors over. All right, yeah. I feel like their computer makes mistakes a lot. How do they do that?
The minimum wage or the free intern put in the wrong number.
There you go.
It's really win percentages that always drive me crazy on that thing. It's just they're so quick to put like a 99% chance on a game that's just very much still in contention. Do you know that Georgia's never played in College Station?
Yeah, I did see that.
I found that out the other day. I never even thought about it or realized it, but it's kind of crazy to me.
Okay, so Sunday's the end of the Olympics.
All right.
Right.
Closing ceremonies.
So there's no events after the closing ceremonies, right?
Right. It says the last event will be the men's water polo final at 4:30 Tokyo time, 3:30 our time.
It must be natural if, since they put events before the opening games, they just let some games continue after the closing ceremonies.
After the last goal is scored and the final winner is declared, the ceremony will take place at 8 p.m. local time, 7 a.m. U.S. time.
The same day as the water polo final?
Yes.
Nice.
So once that game is done, boom.
All my life, my goal was to cross the finish line.
Honestly, I was just wanting to be sure how they were going to be able to do that and still get the NASCAR race in. So, but I've gotten that all verified now. NASCAR's back.
Oh, I gotta check where the F1 circuit's at this weekend.
Indy is in Nashville. They're doing a road course in Nashville, which I would have loved to have gone to. But, my daughter had to go and, graduate from college and all that. So.
Oh, what? F1's off for the next 3 weekends. Guess we're at the halfway point of the season. That's a shame. Next Olympics are in Paris, Chris.
Correct.
Pumped for that.
So we will take the extra minute here.
Okay.
All right, guys, we're up.
Several options, I think, is what I've learned this morning as far as top positions of concern. Quarterback, defensive back, wide receiver seem to be the top three, Patrick. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's fair. I think those are the three positions of concern, and then the three positions you feel confident going into the season are running back, tight end, and defensive line. I think that's been fairly unanimous through all Gamecock fans.
What a stage is set for the kickoff of practice coming up on Friday. We've got the NFL kicking off its season tomorrow night. Training camps in full force all over the place. Was quite the newsworthy day yesterday. We'll see what comes today and discuss it again with you tomorrow. We'll have Bill Gunter back. Patrick, you going to give him any kind of suspension or have him serve any kind of quiet time since he's missed the last 3 days to start tomorrow?
No, I'll just let him talk for the whole 3 hours. I'm sure he's got a lot to say.
That's a good point.
I'll just sit here quietly.
Thanks for listening to the early game. Dan Patrick Show coming up next year on 107.5.
This is Todd Ellison.
All right, live streamers. Anthony, thanks as always. Hope you felt like your whiteboard came in handy today.
Exactly.
Good discussion, for sure.
DC, Chris, thanks, guys. We'll do it again in the morning, bright and early.